Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Abby and I like to talk about spooky things. Happy Valentine's Day, or it is Valentine's Day when I'm filming this. Normally I spend my Valentine's Day relaxing and doing nothing important, hence why I'm not wearing makeup, because I had to do this because I didn't do it yesterday, but I still want to spend my Valentine's Day comfy and at home with Oscar. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you 34 terrifying TikToks. If you guys like this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up, click the subscribe button down below, and turn on post notifications so you never miss a video. I post Sundays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4 p.m. Central Time. And without further ado, let's get right on into the video. Our first TikToks with user starred Kevin96.
Me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first. When I was 8.
Okay. I've tried to do this a few times. Finally got it figured out. But I'm gonna try not to make this too long-winded because I think these things are getting pretty long-winded on some of them. But anyway, so my dad has been interested in the paranormal for a long time. I got into it when I was about 19, 18 or 19. I started going with him. He would go with very good friends of ours on some investigations. I guess I was 18. I've been doing it about 10 years. I've been to about 20 or so different investigations, just for fun. We have a group of friends that are like family. My dad's best friend since he was a kid. He's my uncle. We all go, we're all from Kentucky or Georgia, and I'm from Illinois, and we all meet up and go to these different famous haunted locations once or twice a year. It's pretty cool, but I've got a lot of stories, but the first one is one that really stands out. There's a couple others, but the first one that I went to when I was 18 really stands out. So, it was a place called Saddamsville Rectory in Cincinnati area. Not too far, actually, from the famous Bobby Mackey's. And Saddamsville Rectory, Ghost Adventures has been there. Their episode was like most Ghost Adventures episodes. They dramatized a lot of it, but that does not take away from how haunted this place is. So we were all staying there, but the rest, there was about 15 of us, I guess, 12, 15 of us, and the rest of the group had gotten hotel rooms. This is the first thing that happened that made me believe in the paranormal, but just so they could shower. They got hotel rooms just so they could shower, and they were all gone, getting in their hotel rooms, showering, and they were going to get some food and bring it back and make food and stuff. And so it was just me, my dad, my Uncle Larry there. And we do it on New Year's most of the time, so it was cold, and we were just locked up in the front room, and my dad was in the basement sitting there by himself, just kind of sitting in the dark listening. And my uncle, he was reviewing evidence from maybe the night before. I don't remember if this was the second day or what, but he was reviewing some evidence, and I was just playing on my phone. We had the door shut, in the front parlor there, and I walked out in the hallway because I was going to go across the hallway and get something out of the fridge in the kitchen, and that's where we had our DVR camera set up, where you could see, every camera that we had set up in the whole house and stuff. And I was just gonna, whatever, maybe eat a snack. And when I walked out in the hallway, I could clearly hear footsteps up above me. And I could see, and so I went in the kitchen and I could see on the DVR that my dad's in the basement. And I know for a fact we were the only ones there, 100%. So, I walked run in and get my uncle, come out, we listened. It was really cool. We put a recorder up there. I don't think the recorder caught anything. I think after we went up there, the footsteps stopped. But later on that night, we were up in the attic. As we walked up the stairs, I physically saw, and at that time I didn't know I could physically see this, but I physically saw an orb. Me and another person saw it shoot across the attic. There's this huge attic. Imagine almost like, in my mind, it looks like an auditorium. I mean, the ceiling was really tall. It was like a big barn loft, you know. I mean, they had a big projector screen, and there was about 6 or 7 of us probably sitting up there in this huge, all kind of spread out. They had chairs up there, and back behind me is the corner. And we're going on with the spirit box. You know, we're doing a spirit box session. We're talking to this girl a little bit. She's coming through, you know, which was amazing. Which at the time I didn't know how amazing it was, because now I've had so many spirit box sessions where I heard nothing. And I felt something touch my jacket. So I move a seat over to where I'm sitting next to my friend Chris. And now the seat that I was in is over here next to me, and we get talking to this girl on the spirit box, a young girl, and maybe teenager, and we get around to where, you know, she only wants to talk to me, and I'm getting kind of freaked out, and I keep feeling something touch my leg, and I put my hand over by this chair, you know, on where my leg is at, and the chair over here is ice cold. Over to my right, the chair is ice cold. And I said, "Hey, Uncle Larry, this chair over here is ice cold." And we had been having a conversation with this girl, or I had, an intelligent conversation for some time, which this whole conversation is on camera and on a recorder somewhere in somebody's archives. And I'll have to find it sometime. But anyway, my Uncle Larry went over and put his hand right in the middle of that chair, right about where somebody's legs would be if they were sitting on it, and the spirit box said, "Hey!" Just like he had touched this girl on the leg. And she was pretty attached to me, and it really made me feel different, you know. I think we talked to her father too. There was a male coming through, a male voice that we talked to that was kind of protective, and it was different, you know. I've had some experiences since then that were pretty cool as well. I've had some better experiences than that, I think. But since that was the first time, that's what made me for sure say, you know, I kind of believed in ghosts and stuff, but I hadn't had a real experience, and those two things, that's what made me say this stuff is real. I don't have any other way to explain it. And the amount of times I have been places and not hardly had any experiences, just proves to me that it's real. Even been back to the same place, you know, been back to the same place I'd went before, and that just proves that it's real to me. If anybody wants to hear more of some of these stories, I'm willing to share a few of them, but yeah, that's mine.
I mean, from what I'm hearing from the story, I have no doubts that they interacted with someone. I think the thing that stood out to me most was he said that he felt the cold air sitting next to him. I think if I were in that situation, I would really, really be freaked out, because to me, there's no way that a chair just gets cold on its own. You know, unless the air surrounding it is cold, which then you wouldn't really notice like a gap of cold air sitting next to you. To me, I'd be like, oh yeah, for sure there's something sitting next to me. Our next 4 TikToks are by one of my favorite creators. You may know her because she talks about doing house calls in the hills of the Appalachian Mountains. She did have a little snafu where her account was like hacked or something, and then she had a second account. So some of these were saved from the second account, which no longer exists, and they have the watermark of the second account. But her actual username of her full active account is Church of Chelsea. So some of these will have a different watermark on them from the TikTok watermark, but her real username will be at the top of each video. If you want to go check out more of her videos, I do recommend it because I thoroughly enjoy all of them.
I used to do house calls in the hills of the Appalachian Mountains. Many of my patients lived off the grid. Sometimes they didn't have running water or electricity, and I'd often find myself navigating to their homes using the compass in the car and my map. All of my stories are changed for HIPAA and for the sake of storytelling. I'm going to take you back to this time I did a visit in the middle of the wintertime in probably some of the most unfavorable conditions you can think of. I am off the beaten path. I am not even on a road that is paved. Like, talk about snow plows and salt. Yeah, no, absolutely not where I was. I'm navigating these back roads the best that I can, and all I can think of is there are no guardrails and there are a lot of steep drops. So I am like so relieved when I finally pull up to the property. And this property, while it looks absolutely beautiful and pristine with all of this snow, is like a 2-story cabin that looks like it's caving in on itself. Like, I mean, the roof is starting to like bow. The cabin itself looks slightly kind of off to the side. I was actually pretty surprised there was somebody living in the residence. So I walk up this porch that has not been shoveled. I have snow practically up to my butt, and the door is answered by this middle-aged woman. She says her name is Rachel for the sake of the story. Tells me that I'm here to see her mother. Her mother, we're going to call her Mary for the sake of the story. So I'm greeted into the home, and in the main room, right where we walk in, there's like a hospital bed on the far wall. On the left, there's a fireplace. To the wall I'm closest to, there's like a couch, and then there's a recliner at the end of the bed. Before I meet the patient, Rachel's kind of explaining to me the situation. She came back to care for her mother following her having a medical emergency, and now she basically needs total care. She's very difficult to communicate with because of this complication. She only says a couple of things very repetitively. And I can see from the main area that beyond that there's like a hallway and I'm assuming the kitchen. So despite the fact that I'm not quite sure of how much the patient can understand, I always introduce myself. I always try to get an idea of how much are we understanding, you know, what can I do to help here? And all Mary says is, nobody's coming. And every question I ask, she just says, nobody's coming. And I had spoken to Rachel and she said, you know, that's very typical. That's one of the things that she says. Particularly this time of day, she starts to get kind of anxious. You know, she has some sundowning, gets very confused in the evening, and she'll just start saying, nobody's coming. And I don't really think much of this other than the fact that perhaps this is how her illness has affected her. Rachel says this is her norm since she's been moved back home, and I'm kind of just trying to get an idea, get a gauge of what exactly has changed that Rachel's concerned. So during the visit, Rachel and I kind of start talking about her life and how she was raised on the property, came back again, like I said, to care for her mother. And all of a sudden her mom, you know, starts getting very worked up and she's like, nobody's coming, nobody's coming. And Rachel's like, this is what I'm talking about. At a similar time, while Rachel is tending to her mom, you know, kind of like saying, Mom, you know, it's okay, I'm looking at the doorway and I notice what I would best be able to describe is like a hunched over figure with very long arms, walking past the doorway with its arms dragging behind it. I know that sounds crazy and I know it's hard to imagine, but that's the best way I can describe it. And so I kind of like nudge Rachel. I'm like, hey, I'm kind of like explaining. I'm like, I swear, I'm like, you said that it's just you and your mom. And she goes, yeah, you know, I just came home to care for my mom. It's just the two of us in the house. And I'm like, listen, I know this is crazy. Do you have like a cat? Do you have a dog? Do you have anything? And Rachel's explaining, no, it's just the two of them in their house. And her mom is again just in a state of nobody's coming, nobody's coming. So I take a few deep breaths. I calm down. I think, okay, it's time. I need to finish up, and then we're kind of going to discuss what we think. I go over next to Rachel near the bed, and Mary's looking at me. The patient's looking at me. And Mary stops talking for a minute, looks at me, looks at Rachel, and says, that's nobody. I beg your finest pardon. Absolutely not. That's a no. Absolutely, that's a no from me. No, ma'am. Never in a million years could anything have prepared me for the way my stomach fell directly into my ass. I looked at Rachel and I was like, no. No, the end all be all is, I was pretty concerned about this behavior regardless, so we made sure that was taken care of. But I still stand firm on I saw something walk through that doorway. I know I saw something walk past that doorway. I suppose the moral of the story is when people say that they see nobody's there, who exactly is nobody? I used to do house calls to the hills of the Appalachian Mountains. Many of my patients lived off the grid without running water or electricity. Many of the times I'd be navigating to areas without Wi-Fi or cell phone service, so I'd be finding my way with the use of the compass in my car and a map. All of my stories are changed for the sake of HIPAA and for the sake of storytelling. Grab your blanket and get cozy. This is going to be a several-part series. Many years ago, my husband and I bought this beautiful property in this little bed and breakfast town that was built almost 100 years ago with a barn that was built in the early 1800s. This was right after we had gotten married, so I mean we were scraping and saving to buy this house. We knew when we purchased the home there were a lot of renovations that needed to be done, so much so that when we purchased the home, we dragged a mattress into the living room and we slept out of there and worked on the home around us for months. One of the first areas we decided to renovate was the former attic, which we wanted to make into a big bedroom with a bathroom and a dressing and makeup room area for me. The first step to working up there was really getting everything out. So all of the paper mache insulation needed to be pulled out, and we were finding like bits and bobs, pieces of cardboard, hundreds of old shoe boxes, stamps from Chicago to our little town, some of the most interesting little things from the 1920s and 1930s. While moving all of these things out from underneath the floorboards with the insulation, we also found this really beautiful old nightgown made of silk trimmed with lace. It was old, stained, and discolored. It looked like it had been under the floorboards for maybe close to 100 years. My husband and I continue to clear the area. He has a shovel. He's pulling out material out from underneath the floorboards, and we hear like dink, dink, and then my husband goes, "Oh, I know what that is." And I'm like, "Okay, like what?" He pulls up this beautiful, intricate piece of lace, and underneath it is a revolver. My husband picks it up, clears it, says it's safe. We decided to look it up online. We find that it's a Thames Arms revolver from the home's build period. At this point, we hadn't really put things together, and then a series of events started occurring that made it seem like we were not wanted messing around or disturbing anything in the attic anymore. On my way home from a night shift, I was in a catastrophic car accident when the tire of my car blew out and I hit the back of a tractor trailer. And this thing stopped like inches away from my face. I mean, we were close to decapitation there. Because of this, I ended up having hand surgery, and then I was at home for a while, which resulted in me noticing a significant uptick in paranormal activity. Small things at first, kind of making my husband and I question each other of, did you leave all of these lights on? Why is that door open? Did you just slam that door? Almost like we're at each other over this. The amount of paranormal activity that started in our house after we disturbed these relics was outstanding. Several months later, I'm on the mend, I'm feeling better. We decide to have some friends over. And while they're over, we take them upstairs to show them the renovation that we're doing and how we kind of stripped everything down to the studs upstairs to put in the new bedroom, bathroom, makeup room. So our friends come upstairs with us, and my girlfriend goes, "Oh no." She goes, "No, you have something upstairs in this attic." She goes, "It does not feel good up here." And since she had said that, I was like, oh, we have to show her the stuff. Like the stuff that's like probably over 100 years old that we found in our attic. Like it's kind of creepy, it's kind of eerie. Like we have this nightgown. So we had taken some of like the little marbles, stamps, you know, the nightgown, this revolver that we found, and said, you know, people, you know, just left these things behind. They're like over 100 years old. They had fallen through the floorboards or whatever. And our friend picks up this nightgown and she's looking at it in a way that we hadn't, like holding it up to the light. And she goes, "Is this a hole?" She's like, look at this pattern of staining. She's like, "Are you seeing this?" Now, up until this point, like my husband and I hadn't really done much renovation on the attic since my accident. Like it was very clear that bad things were happening and the paranormal activity in our home was kicking up when we started messing with things in the attic. So it just wasn't the time. After our friend points this out, you know, we have this assumption and we get very motivated. So we decide we're going to go searching for anything else that we can find. We're going to pull up the rest of these floors. We're going to search everything. What else is up here? We went so far with this that we decided to get in contact with the owners of the home before us to kind of get the timeline, figure out what's going on in this home, and we asked them about what the state of the attic was like when they lived in the home. And the previous owners pretty much say that like the great room in the attic, some of the floors just seem to be pulled up with not much care, and there was a big hole in the middle of the floor when they moved in, and they never really went back up, had no need to be in the attic since then. When we asked them if they had anything to do with all of these floorboards that were pulled up and missing, or any of the things that were found in the floorboards, they said no, they just put the electric into the already existing holes of the attic. They said they had only been in the attic just a handful of times, 2 or 3 times, and didn't have any reason to do anything up there. And we're carrying on, we're talking about the house and like, you know, the changes that we've decided that we're going to make. And the previous owner abruptly goes, "Have you seen the little girls in the house? Are they still there?" And I'm like, "What do you mean little girls in the house? What do you mean are they still there?" Like, I tell him, "No, I haven't seen any little girls in the house. We had some paranormal activity, but no little girls." The previous owner tells us that there were 2 teenage girls in the home that would laugh and slam the door at the top of the stairs. And I'm like, "No, we've not experienced this." At this point, you know my motto. I see something, no I didn't. Something's there, is not my business. So at this point, I don't want to go back upstairs. I'm done. We're done. Chelsea's out. But my husband is like, "No, we're going to figure out what happened." I used to do house calls in the hills of the Appalachian Mountains. Many of my patients lived off the grid without running water or electricity, in areas where my cell phone wouldn't work and I didn't have any GPS service, so I would be navigating to their homes with the use of the compass in my car and a map. The company I used to work for does not exist anymore, and I'm no longer an employee there, and all of the stories I tell are changed for the sake of HIPAA and for the sake of storytelling. But this story actually doesn't have anything to do with patients, so it does not need to be changed for the sake of HIPAA, and I can share photos. So let me just give you a recap of what we've already talked about from part 1. My husband and I moved into this beautiful little farmhouse many years ago in this little Hallmark movie town, and we knew the house would need a lot of renovation, so we actually just like pulled our mattress into the living room and then renovated the house around it. And where we decided to start was what was formerly the attic. The plan was to put a large bedroom, a bathroom, and a makeup dressing area upstairs for me, but what we needed to do first was take everything out of it. The insulation, the old flooring, everything had to go. And while we were doing that, we found some artifacts that looked like they had been there for maybe like 100 years, like original owners. And when we disrupted these things, over time we started to have a lot of paranormal activity in the home. So upon the time we found these things and disrupted them without really thinking anything of it, the giant tree on our property fell onto our barn right after we had gotten it square back onto the foundation. Our septic tank just went on the fritz. It just backed up, which we had to handle ourselves because it was on a holiday weekend. I don't wish that on my worst enemy. I was in a terrible catastrophic car accident where my tire blew out and I hit the back of a tractor trailer, like semi, and almost had my head taken off. And then the light bulbs in our living room kept like exploding. And I don't mean just like breaking, no. It looked like they were spun out of the socket and then dropped to the floor and broke, and then everything was scooped up in a nice pile. And the things we found in our attic over time, what we covered in our last video was the nightgown, which we didn't realize was a nightgown at first, and then an old revolver. Which, again, these things are like over 100 years old, and we found them kind of like scattered in the attic under the floorboards. So at first, until a friend of ours like started putting things together, we didn't think a whole lot of it. We had also found shoe boxes, stamps, letters, other pieces of clothing that were kind of shoved in to where like the insulation of the house was under the floorboards. So after uncovering these things and all this paranormal activity in the home starts, and we start having these really horrible life experiences, we seek out the previous owners of our home to kind of get some background on the property And they tell us they basically hadn't been in the attic at all. They had no reason to be up there. They didn't do anything to the floors. But they did see 2 teenage girls that would laugh at the top of the stairs of the attic and slam the door. And they had asked us if we had seen them, and we had said, like, no, like, we definitely hadn't seen that. After we get to this point, my husband is intrigued. He's like, we're going to tear up the rest of the flooring upstairs. We need to see if there's anything else up there. And I'm like, no thank you. No thanks. You know, my overall general consensus when things like this happen is ignore it and hope it goes away. It did not go away. So my husband goes back up into the attic, and he's pulling trash bag after trash bag of like insulation, old newspapers, clearing out the attic for renovation, and he finds nothing. And so we're like, maybe that's it. Maybe we'll leave things alone up there, and the paranormal activity will calm down. But then I needed a ceiling fan installed in the living room, so he had to go to a completely different part of the attic and pull up some more floorboards that we hadn't overturned yet, to put in the electric upstairs. And he finds a check stuck to like a floorboard, like the underneath side of a floorboard, that hadn't been touched yet. So he brings the check downstairs. We're kind of looking at it, and my husband realizes that the check is made out to the original owner of the home, and the check is for a life insurance policy with the life insurance policy number there, and it's like a receipt of payout. And since he's going to run electric in that area, he starts clearing out the rest of the insulation under that area of the floorboard, and he starts pulling out these like glass vials. They're small, they're different colors, they have like cork tops in them. And we don't know what's in the vials. So the next day, my husband's cutting the lawn, and the neighbors that live next door, they've lived there like 50 some years, they're an elderly couple, they end up getting home from being away on a trip. Before all of the homes were built on our street, all of the land originally was part of the home that we live in. So to purchase their home, the elderly people that have lived next door for like 40, 50 years, to purchase the land to build their home, they had to speak to the original owners of our home. Does that make sense? So they knew them, and they went to them to purchase property. So since my husband knew that the elderly couple knew the gentleman that lived in this home first, my husband said, you know, the people who used to live in this home, how was his wife? And the elderly man that lives next door goes, there was no wife. It was a man, and he lived in the home with his 2 daughters. So he made it very clear that he had never seen the wife, never met the wife. There was no wife. Now, mind you, we don't say anything about any of the things that we had found, none of the paranormal activity in the home. Like, the neighbors don't know anything about this. We just kind of want to pick his brain because, like I said, the things that we found were like, this is kind of strange, this is kind of suspicious, but like, it's just a hunch, right? So up to this point, we basically just have a hunch and a lot of paranormal activity, right? Like, we don't have anything concrete, and we were kind of hoping that when we spoke to the neighbors next door, it would kind of put our concerns to rest, and there'd be a completely rational reasoning as to what happened, and this is just nothing. No, it did not work like that. So my husband and I go back upstairs, and we're like, no, we are going to find anything else that is in this attic to see if we can figure out what happened. So we continue with our clean out, and I reach into like a wall behind like a small sealed area to like pull out the insulation and kind of strip that area of the room. And I pull out what I thought was just some like material, like more clothing that was kind of padded into the insulation, and it ends up being a pair of Dickie work pants. And I pulled them up, and I showed my husband, I like, look how old these are, like, look at this. Wasn't quite sure what it was at first, and I hold them up, and my husband is like, those are pants. And we're kind of looking at them, the light's kind of behind me, so my husband has a kind of a better view than I do, and he's like, look at those stains. We basically dishevel, pull apart, and search every inch of the upstairs before we finish the remodel, and we don't find anything else. I used to do house calls in the hills of the Appalachian Mountains. Many of my patients lived off the grid in areas where they didn't have running water or electricity, and I wouldn't have cell phone service or GPS, so I would be navigating to their homes with the use of the compass in my car and a map. All of my stories are changed for the sake of HIPAA and for the sake of storytelling. This is the third part to the series of the artifact that we had found in my house while we were doing the remodel. And we left off with the men's pants that we found. I'm going to put a picture here. After we found these things, we started poking around, trying to find out the history of the home, talking to the neighbors, trying to get an idea of what the property was used for before we got here. And we ended up actually finding out that the barn that was on our property was from the 1800s, very, very old. And it was actually registered as a church. So I looked at my husband and I was like, we have this barn, and when we first purchased the property, there was just so much animal feces in the barn. It was piled high. There was so much wood stacked in it that was like floor to ceiling. You couldn't even get into the barn. And my husband was like, I wonder if like there's a body in the barn or something. So we end up, doing some remodeling to the barn. It was a horse barn at one point, we believe, like an 1800s carriage barn. And we always intended on having horses. So we started cleaning the barn, tore everything up, we dug deep, pulled all the floors of the barn out, everything, nothing. And I so much wanted some kind of an explanation to these things in the home. And once we started disturbing them, like I said, the paranormal activity kind of started to kick up. Well, there was one incident where I was in the bathtub upstairs. We have a huge clawfoot bathtub. This was after the remodel was done, after I had my son, after my pregnancy. And I'm laying in the bathtub, and the way our bathroom is, our whole upstairs is like open concept. So like the bathroom is set off from the rest of the area, but there's no like a wall kind of blocks it off. So I'm in the bathtub and I turn my head, and there's a very tall woman, very slender, has her hair tied up at the back of her neck, brown hair. She's wearing a dress that has like a turtleneck sort of style, all black dress with cuffs on her wrists. The dress goes down to her ankles. It looks like she's wearing like kind of little flat ankle boots or something. She walks very, very quickly. Her feet move like shuffle on the floor like 3 or 4 times faster than they should. It's a very uncomfortable thing to look at. And when her body turned to look at me, her entire body turned. She didn't turn her head, her entire body turned. It was the first time and the last time I ever saw her. And then she was gone. Now, as far as this property goes, it used to be part of over 100 acres. Like this whole street began with just this house. So we might never really know if she's still here or where she is, what happened. And people always ask, is there still paranormal activity in the home? Yes. Do your children see it? My daughter is only 7 months old. So far I've not seen anything unusual. However, my son had drawn a picture of our family, and you can see, I can't really see now, there's mom and him. He drew dad and grandpa, and then grandma and his baby sister, and then that. What is that? So I'd say it's safe to say that she's probably a staple in our home at this point. She doesn't cause us any trouble. We'll feel her move through the house from time to time. Sometimes there'll be a lot of ruckus in the attic. November and December, she gets very restless and very loud in the house. There are certain people that are kind of uncomfortable in my house and say that they feel her more than other of my friends, but she doesn't bother us any. I'd be more than happy to continue this series. I guess my question is, how much of this do you guys find interesting? Do you want me to keep going, or do you want me to switch back to my house call series? I have a lot of really cute stories. Also, by the way, this is completely unrelated, but one of my favorite jokes to tell the patients, because you know, your jokes have to be clean when you work in healthcare. I'm very conscious about that. We want to keep it professional. But sometimes I'll have like a minute where like a patient's like looking for something on their phone, or like I'm collecting labs, or like I'm doing something on my computer and I'm like, hang on just 1 second, and I'll have a chance to throw a joke out there. Okay, so get this. I told this to a patient this week. He thought it was great. His wife thought it was stupid, but okay. So there's 2 goldfish in a fishbowl, okay? And Jerry looks at Herb, the other fish, and he goes, do you know how to drive this thing? So knee slapper. Anyways, I hope you guys are having a really good day. I apologize. My posts have been kind of spread out lately. I wish I had more time in a day. Oh, he was upstairs. Now he's back. Come here, Nims. Come. Yes, come. I'm sure the people were worried because you weren't excessively screaming in the background of this video. They probably thought something happened to you. No, he's still here.
The first story makes me like really sad and scared worrying about the mother-daughter, because it seems like along with the health issues that the mother is going through, there is some kind of weird entity in the house, and the daughter seems to be unaware of it. Like she thinks it's just her mom mumbling things because she's sick. I don't know, it makes me concerned for their safety and also like mental health as well. I don't know, seeing a creature and then finding out that that creature is nothing, I would have like a pit in the bottom of my stomach. As for her personal home stories, I really think that something had to have happened there. Them mentioning like a gunshot through the dress, some weird staining, could it be just like dry blood that's, changed color over the years because it's been so long? Was there a woman who was shot up in that attic or somewhere in the house and the evidence was discarded in the attic? I mean, but where's the body? I don't know. To me, it feels like there is some kind of weird history going on in that house that they just have yet to fully uncover. Our next TikTok by user, madisonsingssongs.
Welcome back to another ghost story time. This is the story about my first ghost that I ever saw. Funny enough, I remember nothing about it. This was told to me from my mom, who was told from daycare. So I guess when my mom would drop me off to daycare, she would leave, and then I would go sit by the rocking chair in the corner and just talk to the person there. I don't remember this daycare. I was too young. I was like maybe 1.5, 2, but I would just sit there and talk, and they would call my mom and be like, hey, your daughter's weird, come pick her up. That never changed. Stay tuned.
Imagine being a daycare worker and one of the kids that comes to daycare just like sits in the corner and stares at something or talks to something. I mean, I'd be like, you can't come back. I'm so sorry, but I do not need a possessed child in my daycare. Our next TikTok's by the user, Nicole World.
This is how I finessed my way into becoming roommates with America's first female serial killer. AKA, my psychological finessing skills gone wrong, so you guys should eat this up. To preface, the home I'll be referencing in this video that I lived in is now owned as event space, so you don't have to believe anything I'm telling you here. You can go check it out for yourself. That roommate still lives there. She's lived there for 200 years, so if you do choose to go check it out, tell my girl I said hey. The year was 2022. I had only been living in Charleston for a couple months at this point. The time had come for me to find a new place to live. I had been scouring Facebook Marketplace and found nothing I could afford because it's Charleston. One morning, a beautiful, bright and shining ad pops up in the most beautiful carriage home of the largest privately owned residence in downtown Charleston, the Glover Skittilly House. It was listed for the right pricing of $650 a month. 22-year-old Nicole was like, ding, 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 sign me up. This is right in my budget, boys. But as you can imagine, $650 a month was in a lot of other girls' budgets too. So after I messaged the girl, she goes, you are welcome to attend our open house, but be aware there is going to be about 20 other girls there. I was like, are you kidding me? But as we all know, it wouldn't be my first rodeo. So what do? Tell them I'm not gonna be able to make it in time for the open house because I have work that night, even though I only worked a 9 to 5, and that I'd have to come early before all the other girls got there. I make these ladies fall in love with me. I was signed, sealed, delivered the next day, baby. Flash forward to a month later, I'm moving myself all by my lonesome into a brand new house. I remember it feeling thick, but I knew the house was 200 years old. I didn't really believe in ghosts. It's dark and stormy. I can't make this up. I have video. I had been in the house all of 10 minutes before I started hearing the women's voices downstairs. I knew that the 3 other girls that I was to be living with weren't going to be back in the residence for 2.5 to 3 weeks. So I was going to be staying in this house by myself. Naturally, I assume that the voices I'm hearing downstairs are maybe one of the roommates back early. So I go out onto the balcony, hey, no one. But whatever, there's an Airbnb beneath this house. Maybe it was a gardener, who knows? There's like acres of this house. That night, I'm finishing up unpacking and I hear the voices again. But I kind of dusted off because I had just started getting floaters in my eye and I was freaking out that I was seeing things that weren't there. So I was like, this is probably just part of my early onset schizo behaviors. Until one of my friends broke the news to me that floaters are a normal occurrence of people with stigmatisms. The next day, I was dating a guy at the time who was a good old boy, didn't believe in ghosts, and I knew would tell me if I was crazy. I will never forget that night as he busted out of my double doors to the balcony yelling, "Who's there?" When a good old boy tells you you're not crazy, you know you're not crazy. As time went on, I started to realize that whatever these encounters were only primarily happening when this boyfriend was there. So one day I finally get to the point where I'm close enough with one of the roommates who coincidentally had lived in the house longest to ask her, has anybody ever questioned whether this house is haunted? She takes the biggest sigh, says, let me put on my PJs. How long do you have? I'm going to do my best to retell her story in the quickest way possible for those of you who are unfamiliar with Lavinia Fisher. Lavinia Fisher had this husband or partner. They were running the streets of Charleston, offing people, stripping them of their clothes, burying the bodies, and selling the clothes down on Market Street. So in other words, they were unorthodox consignment. And the first founders of Uptown Cheapskate. Can you imagine? They were eventually caught, and the husband was arrested and taken to jail. But in the 1700s, of course, women didn't have to go to jail if they were married to somebody without a felony, so Lavinia knew what she had to do. Our girl had to find a way to get laid. Legend has it that she was seen running the streets of Charleston in a wedding dress, begging any man she walked by to marry her. Relatable. Before her life sentencing, right here in Marion Square, as she was still wearing her wedding dress, with her final words being, do any of you have anything you'd like for me to say to the devil? I was like, what? The devil? I don't know him, I don't want to know him. Nice to meet you too, sis. Why didn't we talk about this in the open house? So I'm like, let's clear some things up here. First of all, why is she here? Because what's up with my room? Well, Glover or Skatilli were a doctor, and they would practice medical procedures on the women in the carriage home, aka my house. So they all hated men, but Lavinia especially. And their sleeping quarters were in my bedroom. Enjoy your time here, though. It's gonna be great. I thought I was moving in with 3 roommates. I moved in with like 56. Come to find out, the girl that lived in my room had the same, if not worse, experiences, like voices in the shower. Burn it down, burn it down. Things get creepier. We get infested with fleas. Crows are flying into my bedroom, and it all is circulating around this boyfriend. It was one cold night in January. I got fed up, and I said, you know what? I think I want to break up with you. Was that our final moments together? No, of course not. But that night, I came home. I flopped down on my bed and I said, ladies, if there is any night y'all will let me sleep, please let it be tonight. I don't think I woke up once. And mind you, this haunting had me prescribed alprazolam. Every boy that I had to that house after that were also catalysts for terrible things happening. However, I did kind of get into cahoots with the ghosties, and I felt like they were my friends, and I think started to respect my game. Anyways, long story short, is it nice getting whatever I want whenever I want? Yeah. But do the spirits of the afterworld don't really care how good you are at finessing and will haunt you regardless? Yeah. So yeah, now I believe in ghosts. And you could too. And this is not promotional for that house. I don't know what they're planning to do in there, but that is not their crib. It's theirs. 'Tis the season, ladies. It's spoopy time.
I mean, it sounds like the human roommates were like nice and okay, and the situation itself, aside from the paranormal, was like pretty good. But then to find out that you're living in like the house of a woman serial killer from back in the day, and there's ghosts of a bunch of victims roaming around, that's really not so good. Like, it goes from like just very basic level and okay situation to an absolute nightmare of a situation. I mean, I think it's hilarious that the ghosts have beef with men that come in. I mean, because same. But it does sound like that eventually she kind of like had a rapport going with the ghosts, that it's like they would leave her alone and it'd be on her side sometimes. It seems like eventually it was kind of like not awful, but still not a situation you'd ever want to be in. Our next TikTok these are real life ghost stories.
Did you know that in 1836, 17 fairy coffins were found buried in Arthur's Seat in Edinburgh? I only came across this story this week. I'd never heard of it before, and it's so good. It's so good. Basically, the story goes that in early July 1836, a group of boys were on Arthur's Seat, which is a hill in Edinburgh, and they were hunting for rabbits when they noticed a little gap in some rocks. And this little cave, the entrance had been like filled in with some pieces of slate. So the boys, being curious, decided to see what was inside. And inside they found these 17, what they called fairy coffins. These fairy coffins had been placed in the cave in 3 tiers. So there was a tier of 8, a tier of 8, and then one singular coffin on its own. The belief was that these coffins had been placed in the cave over a period of time. The little coffins were quite simply made. They were carved out of singular pieces of wood, and then they would have a little lid nailed on with brass pins. But all around the coffins there were these little pieces of like decorative tin that somebody had taken great care to place all around the sides of the coffins. The boys, because they were young and didn't know what they had found, managed to destroy some of the coffins simply by flinging them at each other on the side of the hill, because what else would you do if you found a load of tiny coffins? Of course you're going to fling them at each other. But when they were done missiling these little coffins all around the hillside, they did tell one of their teachers, who happened to be a member of an archaeological society, who gathered up the little coffins and brought them to be studied. And this is where it gets even more fascinating. So 2 experts studied the coffins. So these experts made some really interesting conclusions about these coffins. So firstly, they believed that they had been put into the hillside relatively recently, like genuinely in the last couple of years. They also believed that the coffins were made, but that these little wooden figures were actually toy soldiers because their arms had been removed to make them fit into the coffins. They reckoned that 2 people were responsible for making the coffins, and they thought they were shoemakers because the little ornaments, the metal ornaments that were around the coffins, were the same metal that was used in shoe buckles. One of the reasons that they realised that these fairy coffins were recent was because the thread that was used to make the little outfits that were on the dolls was only used in Scotland like after the 1820s, and that is the kind of attention to detail that I just would not have. I would have seen those coffins and been like, fairies, you're all cursed. And here's where it gets even more interesting. So these experts concluded that the coffins were all placed there at the same time. So they thought maybe it's representative of a load of sailors that were lost at sea, 17 of them. Or 17 people that lost their lives and maybe couldn't be buried properly. And if you're a true crime aficionado, you might be like, hang on a second, what happened in that time period where 17 people lost their lives? The Westport murders occurred between 1827 and 1828, and that was when Burke and Hare, body snatchers, turned to murder in order to make more money out of bodies by selling them to the medical school. And true crime aficionados will be out there screaming, hang on a second, Burke and Hare had 16 victims. Yes, they did. They murdered 16 people, but they used the body of one person who had died of natural causes. Now, just to be clear, this is not me jumping to wild conclusions. This was what the experts drew up in their report. They thought that the 17 little coffins were representative of 17 people who couldn't be buried. Initially, they were like maybe sailors lost at sea. And then they thought, no, hang on a second. What had famously happened a couple of years beforehand, the Westport murders. The bodies of the Westport murder victims had been dissected because they were given to science, so they never got proper dignified burials. But here's where I'm going to be really annoying, because there are lots of people who disagree with this. Simply because of Burke and Hare's victims, 12 of them were women, and none of the dolls that were in the fairy coffins were wearing women's clothes. Anyway, the long and short of it is, nobody really knows what these little coffins were for. It's suspected to be some sort of ritual, but they're not really sure. And 8 of them survived, and you can see them in the National Museum of Scotland. If you are somebody who does spell work, or you are a witch, or you think you might have an idea about what this sort of thing was used for, like, is it a mimic burial or is it for something else? I'm dying to know. Genuinely, I'm not a witch. I don't know very much about spellcraft. But I would love to know what people think in the comments. So as I was editing this video, I just had a thought. What if it is some sort of mimic burial for the victims of Burke and Hare, and the way in which the coffins were found in the cave is important? So you had a tier of eight, and one coffin on its own. What if it was 8 murders, 1 victim who died of natural causes? Oh my God, have I solved the mystery?
It is kind of a relief to me that they found out that the figurines were in fact wood and it wasn't some like weird specimen that was mummified and put in these mini coffins. Like, it was just kind of a representation of something, or like she said, maybe it was involved in some kind of ritual or some kind of witchcraft, which all of that I think is fascinating and pretty cool. But if it was like literal somehow mummified fairies, that would be really creepy. Our next TikTok's by the user samantha.la.chingona.
I will always tune in to someone sharing a ghost story, a personal ghost story, right? I'm like, oof, I am sad. Let's go. So I'm inspired to share an experience of mine. It was a weird, spooky experience that myself and my dog witnessed. This happened in my childhood home, okay? Must have been like 12 or 13. I was home alone. It was nighttime. I had all the lights on. When it was nighttime, I had all the lights on. I don't know. I'm like, I'm not paying the electricity bill. What do I care? Anyways, so I'm on the couch with my dog Rosie to my right. Okay, let me explain the layout. Directly in front of me is the kitchen room. Across the kitchen is the living room. I'm in the family room. To the right of me is the hallway. To the left of me is the entrance to the house. So we got the front door, we got the window. Okay. I'm reading my book, which happened to be a book called Haunted Heartland, which was just a collection of stories that were collected all across from the United States. Urban legends, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, I'm in my element. So anyways, I'm seated. Okay. My sweet baby angel Rosie, R.I.P., who, by the way, was the most sweetest, most gentlest little chihuahua, okay? She was not a yappy chihuahua. No. And this is important to note, as you'll hear or see here in a moment. She's right there seated next to me. Suddenly, she starts to bark at the left corner. I think nothing of it at first, because I'm like, perhaps someone is just walking by the house, and she senses that. She's a little alarmed. Right? And I'm like, no biggie. And then she settles down. Go back to reading my book. Then she starts barking again at the same fucking corner. And I'm thinking, perhaps the person that was walking by did a little U-turn and is walking by again. No biggie. You know, she's barking. I'm like, it's all right. Shh. So she settles down, stops barking. Go back to reading my book. Then, the third time, she starts barking again at the corner, right? with more intensity. And I'm like, this is very peculiar. What is going on? I'm looking. I'm like, is there a rat? Is there something? Nothing. I see nothing. Then she starts to growl. She lowers her head and she is growling. And she is fixated in that one corner. And I'm like, this is getting really weird. The hair, the fur on her back was just raised, right? And I'm like, okay. Then she starts to follow something. She's moving her head from left to right. I don't see nothing. And I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck? You know how they say babies and animals can see things, see spirits? I'm like, this bitch sees a spirit. And this motherfucking spirit is making her way across the living room, girl. And she can see. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm holding my breath. Feels like time has stopped. Because this bitch is just slow. I'm like, I guess the spirit was moving real slow because she was moving her head real slow. And then she stares at the hallway for the longest time. And then she it's like all the tension she just releases, stops growling, settles down, sits back down, as if nothing happened. And I'm like, okay, perhaps there really was a spirit just passing through, and it did nothing to us. And you know what? Cool. I'm going to move on. I'm going to continue reading my book. So I do so. I'm reading my book. Then, out of nowhere, like a spooked cat, my dog just jumps up real high. Like someone's poked her or something. I don't know. And then she does a little and then jumps off, bolts off the couch and runs across the kitchen and into the living room. And I'm following right behind her because I said, ain't no motherfucking way I'm going to stay here with this entity. No, or whatever. And we both hang out in the over there in the living room, right? I turn the TV. Mind you, we're peering over the couch, looking over where we were just at. I remember we both were okay, waited till my mom got home. Mom gets home, tell her everything. And if Rosie could speak, she would be like, bitch, I saw something. Ah, this house is haunted. You know, we were both like in my mom's face, Rosie's jumping up at her. I felt like, man, I wish a dog could speak, but she couldn't, she's a dog. And she goes, oh my God, well, what were you doing? I was like, I was reading my book. She goes, oh, the one about all those ghost stories? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, yeah. You know what? You're scaring yourself. You're paranoid. Throw that book away. I'm done. We're done. And I'm like, no, I have a book report due. Oh my God, I can't do that. Didn't care. She's like, go. Throw it out. So I walk out with the book, right? Walk out to the front, swing a right, lift the trash bin lid open, let it slam to make her think I threw it away, but I didn't. I walk back into the house from the side door of the garage, and I put the book in a suitcase. I'm like, ha, gotcha. I'll get it tomorrow before school. Tomorrow comes, and I open the garage. Mind you, at night, my dog Rosie, we put her in the garage to, sleep there. Anyways, I open the door. She typically will just bolt in, right? She's just so excited, comes back in. She didn't this time. Instead, she was barking. I'm like, what is she barking at? Turn on the lights. You know what she's barking at, y'all? She's barking at the suitcase that the book is in. Ferociously, like she was last night. Or had the night before. And I'm like, why? So anyways, I get the book, move on with my life, finish the book report, gave the book to a friend. I said, can you hang on to this book for me? Because I wanted to finish it. Anyways, never saw the book again. I don't know what happened to it. She lost it. But But yeah, isn't that weird? I thought it was weird. I thought it was a real spooky experience. And that's like one of many, again, that happened in my childhood home. I am convinced that house, something was off with it. Never felt right. The auras, the vibes were off. Anyways, toodaloos, the end.
Oh, dogs absolutely have sixth senses about things like that. I mean, I previously lived in a haunted house years and years ago, but when Oscar was a baby, he lived there with me, and he sensed some stuff. He'd wake up randomly howling at 3 in the morning. He'd bark out into the dark hallway. He exhibited a bunch of like weird behaviors in the middle of the night that as soon as we moved out of the house, I've never seen him experience again. And he's never done anything like that again. And that is the house that I played a Ouija board in when I was a kid and believed that I haunted by playing the Ouija board as a kid. So it all kind of adds up. And I definitely believe that dogs can see things we cannot. Our next talk is by the user gloweditco.
Look at that creepy ass hallway though. For some reason, it makes me want to share the story of how I grew up in a very paranormal, full of ghosts home. Real shit. It's literally Christmas Eve right now. My baby just fell asleep. My boyfriend is working out of town. It just feels like such an odd night. The perfect night to tell you guys about this story. So we lived in this house from the time that I was 2 years old to 19 years old. So 17 years we spent in this home. And about 14 of them were filled with all kinds of paranormal experiences. So much that we were so used to it. There were times where we still did get scared, but most of the time we were just really used to it. Truly. I'm talking about whispering, pacing in the rooms above us, seeing actual ghosts, hearing babies cry. We all had our own separate experiences too, but we also experienced things at the same time. For instance, we always had dinner, at the dining room table, all 7 of us. And the room above our dining room table was a room that we used for like extra storage, like old furniture, chairs, random stuff. And for some reason, well, we know the reason, this room was always so much colder than the other rooms. And it also was the room where most of the activity happened. We'd be sitting in there eating dinner and we'd hear pacing back and forth right above us. And we'd all just look up like so creeped out, but also used to it because it happened all the time, but it still was creepy. We'd hear whispering. We had really well-trained dogs. I mean, the best fucking dogs. And they were so obedient. But when that activity would start happening, they would go sit at the bottom of the stairs and bark so ferociously. They hated it. And it was wild to see them do that because they never were like, they were just really obedient dogs. And so it made the hairs stand up on our skin to see them do stuff like that. Now, my experience ties with my little sister. So me and my little sister, actually me and my 2 sisters, we shared a room. I'm going to try to describe this so you can see it. So me and my little sister had a bunk bed. And then right next to our bunk bed was my oldest sister's bed. It was just one singular bed. And one night I was having a really hard time sleeping. I just was laying there with my eyes closed for a while. And one of the times that I opened my eyes, I seen in the hallway clearly a girl that was a ghost travel from the stairwell to the bathroom. And she was wearing a long white gown. She had long dark hair, brown or black, I don't know. It was just dark. And she kind of just floated to the bathroom. And when I seen that, I knew exactly what I seen. But I still wanted to make sure that I was fully alert. So I rubbed my eyes. I remember rubbing my eyes. I remember this so it's engraved into my brain. Until the day that I die, this moment is engraved. I was so petrified because I knew for sure, once I knew for sure that I truly was still awake and I rubbed my eyes, I was like, oh my God, I gotta do something. So I got the courage to climb up to the top bunk and get in bed with my sister. And I think I did fall asleep a little bit, but she woke me up. She woke me up and told me that she just seen a ghost. And she described what she seen, and it was exactly what I seen. Only she seen the ghost go from the bathroom back to the stairwell. We were so terrified that I believe we slept in the same bed together for like a couple of days or a couple of weeks after that. We were so scared. And then there was a second time that I seen her. I was in my own bed, and I don't know if I was already awake or whatever, but I opened my eyes and I looked at my sister's bed, my older sister, and there she was. She was standing right at the head of her bed, and she was looking down at my sister sleep. And so her back was to me. And she was exactly as I remember seeing her the first time. The long white gown or something, and like this long brown hair. And oh my gosh, I wish that I could describe the level of fear that I had in every single cell of my body, and how I was completely frozen, okay? All I could do, the only thing I could think of doing was closing my eyes and to never open them again that night. And I was awake for a long time, and I was so scared, trying to maintain my breathing and like my heart rate. And if somehow I fell asleep, and me and my sisters did tell our parents about this, and they played it off like it was like nothing. But then we talked about it to them when we were much older. And they said they just didn't want to scare us, but they knew they seen her too. Until the day I die, I know what I saw. I know what I saw, and I've always wondered who that little girl was. So when we were teenagers, my dad just got fed up with all the paranormal shit happening around the house. And it was kind of increasing. So I guess he did his research or whatever, because one day he came home with a bunch of like sage to burn. And he put each of us in one room. So I was in the living room, thank God, because that's probably the least scary room. But I was still terrified. Just being in a room by myself, terrifying. But he told us each to say a certain prayer, and he went around the house and he saged the whole house. And that reduced the paranormal experiences probably about 70 to 80%. I mean, it just drastically changed the vibe in the house. There was still something there, but it was so minor after that. And that was like the last 3 years of being in that house. It was finally a little bit peaceful. But yeah, I definitely grew up in a paranormal home.
I think that would scare the living daylights out of me, sitting there with my whole family in the dining room and knowing the room that nobody occupies on a regular basis, that is right above you, there's someone pacing it. But everyone's there. Like, there's no one up there pacing, but yet you hear pacing noises up there. That would terrify me to my very core. Especially if everyone's there, everyone's experiencing it, and everyone can hear it. There's no denying. It's not like, oh, I'm imagining things, or like maybe me and this one other person are insane. It's like, no, all of us are hearing this, and there's no explanation for it. And it happens regularly. I would be so scared to be in that house by myself. Our next talk is by the user A Spoonful of Sugar 77.
Have you ever had an encounter where you feel like there was a ghost in your home or something creepy was happening? When I was in middle school, I was getting ready to go to a school dance. My dad specifically told me before I could go to the dance, I needed to have my room clean. And as per usual with young kids, I cleaned my room, but that meant I threw everything under my bed or in my closet because, poof, the room was clean. Now, they had gone out, and I was waiting to have someone pick me up to go to the dance. I had walked back into my room, and I had noticed that my closet door was open. And I thought, well, that's strange. I know I closed it because, again, I shoved a lot of stuff in there, and I didn't want my dad to see. So I shut the closet door, even said to myself, there, I closed it, so that I knew my dad would definitely not open the closet. I walked back out of my room to do something else, came back in, and the closet door was open again. Now, mind you, this is a sliding closet door that wasn't exactly great on the tracks. So it wasn't like it just swung open. It would have had to have been pushed. Freaked out, I shut the door again and just kind of tried to go about what I was doing and thought, I'm just crazy. But when I went back into my room, the closet door was open again. So I wanted desperately to get out of my house, but I didn't want to leave my radio on because I didn't want my dad to get upset with me because I had left my room in disarray. So I creeped around the room, staring at the closet door, and got my radio turned off and grabbed my shoes and bolted out the front door. I ran down to my aunt's house because she lived down the street. And I just told them, I don't know, maybe there's somebody in the house. This is what happened. And, people kind of look at you like you're losing your mind. But my uncle went down to the house and went to my room because above my closet was the attic. He looked up into the attic, saw nothing, saw no one. And I just didn't know what to do. I desperately tried to find a friend I could spend the night with that night because I just didn't want to go back in. Well, I didn't find any place to stay and had to stay in my room, but from then on out, I never shut my closet door again because I just didn't want to be freaked. Has anybody else had a weird experience like that?
I will say on the bright side, if it just happened the one time, you can't 100% say it was paranormal. But the fact that she says the door, it needs a good amount of oomph behind it to open up. I mean, that kind of makes me that's weird, You don't typically see doors that, you need to push, just randomly swinging open, because, the air's not going to be that strong. You need a big gust, and that's pretty darn obvious that there was a big gust that opened up the door or something. So, I mean, if it was a one-time thing, I'd be inclined to be oh, okay, well, maybe it was just a weird fluke. But if it really needed a lot of effort to open up that door, then I'm I'm not so sure. So, thankfully, she said this was when she was a kid, so I'm assuming she's out of that house. She's not experiencing anything else in that place anymore. It's more of just a funny anecdote to share with people rather than something that she is dealing with to this day. Our next to talks about the user, Varsja.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
I've got a story for you guys. I was a senior in college in rural Massachusetts, so very old area with lots of history. I lived off campus with some roommates, and when we first moved in, one of the roommates said she was sleeping at night and she saw a lumberjack appear. She closed her eyes and opened it again, and she said it came closer. It was the next day, and so we started joking, hey, this apartment's haunted, ha ha ha. That became a running joke. But honestly, as time went on, things kind of did get creepy, and there were some unexplained things. So for me, in particular, I never saw this lumberjack, but I always felt like I was being watched. And there was always this heaviness also in the apartment, and I would just stay in my room most of the time. I would sleep facing the wall because I just didn't want to risk potentially seeing something in the middle of the night. We had random leaking. Maintenance couldn't understand why. I had leaking through my ceiling light. It was tied to the electric, so I had to get the whole room air dried, the carpet and everything. I was the girly girl of the group. I did makeup videos back in the day. And I would film in my room, for YouTube. And I remember laying in bed. I was studying one day. I remember hearing in my left ear a very audible hum. And it sounded exactly like this. Immediately when that happened, I was like, what the fuck is that? I was hit with a vision of a little girl with shoulder-length blonde curly hair, and she was wearing a white flowy dress. My intuition, I guess, told me that she was the younger sister of this lumberjack guy. And again, I never saw the lumberjack guy, but I do think this little girl wanted to play with me because she knew that I was into makeup. Another time I came home and I saw blue eyeshadow all over my bathroom sink, and nobody would play with my makeup. I didn't wear blue eyeshadow, so who did it? Has to be the little girl, right? To make it even creepier, I was laying in bed again another time, and I started finding blonde strands of hair that matched the texture of the little girl. There's nobody in the apartment that had hair like that. I didn't interact with anybody that had hair like that. Again, I had to have my whole bedroom cleaned out because of the leak. And why would it be in my bed? That was the weirdest part. It kind of gets more creepy, like whenever we had friends over and like we had parties or whatever, if you took pictures, you would just see orbs. Whenever we had like a party, there would be a lot of orbs. I don't know if the ghosts invited other ghosts over, but it would be a lot. This is back in the Facebook days when you would post it on Facebook, like a photo dump. We had a friend come over. He was making a joke, a little bit antagonizing, I guess, about like the apartment being haunted. And then he personally heard like an audible pop that came from the room that the roommate saw the lumberjack in. But he ended up being freaked out by it, that he left, and we ended up feeling really freaked out by it. That night we all decided we were gonna like sleep in the living room area. It was one of the worst nights of sleep I ever had. I felt like I was being maliciously stared at the whole night. I could not sleep. The next day, my atheist roommate said, "Hey, can you do some of like your spiritual stuff?" At this point, we're starting to feel uneasy. Most of the nights I would sleep in the same bed with one of my roommates because we were freaked out. Sometimes we would hear random noises at night. So what I did is I played religious music. I took incense and I went around the whole apartment. From the ashes of the incense, I like drew the Om sigil all over the apartment. And I kid you not, everything stopped. The apartment felt light. So you tell me what you think that was all about.
I mean, I definitely think there was some kind of a woman, a young girl spirit that was interested in her, maybe interested in her makeup, and maybe, I guess, wanted to be friends or something. It doesn't seem like it was a harmful spirit. The lumberjack thing is kind of weird. Unless it was like maybe her dad or something. But yeah, I mean, like, she's noticing that something was playing in her makeup. That's really weird. I'd be weirded out if I came home and like someone had messed with my makeup and it wasn't my sister. I mean, I don't have a sister, but it wasn't my sister. That'd be pretty concerning. But then finding a hair in your bed that's not yours, that would actually kind of gross me out a little bit, but then also creep me out. Probably even more than the makeup thing. I mean, you know, like hair people use for rituals and stuff, and like how weird is it that like a ghost hair ends up on your bed? That would be so creepy. Our next two talks by the user, elimaxwellmitchell.
I don't know what y'all believe, but I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains, and you learn from a very young age to just not ask questions. I was fresh out of high school. My grandmother was sick, and I decided to move in with her to take care of her. She had a 2-story house. Her bedroom was upstairs. My bedroom was downstairs. And I had a baby monitor in her room that I could hear if she needed something because she was bedridden. And sometimes she would, you know, holler for a Coke or whatever. This one particular night, and these things always only happen at nighttime in Appalachia, I hear the front door is basically in the middle of the house. Like, here's the house, her bedroom's here, my bedroom's here, the front door would have been right here in the middle. I hear, and it's a very heavy wood door, I hear that front door close. I didn't hear it open, I heard it close. And it was a very distinct sound. And I was like, what the heck? Nobody should be here. That door was locked. And then I hear footsteps, like very heavy footsteps, like a big old guy in boots or something, walking very fast. Ugh, making me tear up thinking about it because it was so scary. Walking very fast down the hallway to my grandmother's room. So he walked in here and I could hear boom, 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 like fast, and then stopped right beside her bed. And I literally have chills right now talking about this. And I was downstairs, so I'm hearing this in the house. I don't hear anything on the baby monitor, and I'm like looking up at the ceiling because I'm like, what is happening? And then the footsteps stop right beside her bed, which is directly over my head. And I'm looking, and I mean, I'm terrified because I don't have any way to protect myself, and somebody's beside my grandmother, and it's at nighttime. Well, my grandmother, who I thought was asleep, said, "I've been waiting for you." Oh my God. When that happened, y'all, this basement scared me when I was a kid. I would run out of that basement like when you turn the lights off because it was so scary to me. It's a big basement and pitch black. And that night, I mean, that was one of the scariest things that's ever happened to me. There were other really scary things in that house that happened, but that night, and when folks are getting closer to passing on, I think that they have a sense that you don't have, like right now, most people, and the veil just gets a little thinner for them. And so I don't know who she saw or what she saw, but I heard it and she saw it, and she never spoke about it to me. And that's just one of the things that happened in Appalachia.
Honestly, I think it could have been someone maybe who had already passed, and because he said his grandma was sick, that it was someone kind of coming to visit her before she passed over to the other side. You hear this so often, that when people are sick and, you know, getting close to death, that the veil's a little thinner. They're able to see loved ones on the other side, and I think it's kind of a nice thing that it's like, it seems people are able to kind of slowly usher them over to the other side, and it's not just like they die and then they have to figure it out for themselves. It really feels like there's always people kind of visiting you beforehand and letting you know it's going to be okay and that they're there for you when your time comes. And maybe this was just one of these people that she knew from her life, and he was coming to say hi before she passed over. Our next two TikToks for the user, makenziejene.
I'm going to tell you a scary story about something that happened at work today. So I'm a nanny. I nanny for a little boy. He's 3 years old. And over the weekend, I also nannied. I spent the night at their house while his parents were out of town. And I had noticed, I nanny in this house every single day. Okay, this is where I work. It's where I basically live. And I noticed over the weekend that I was having this really weird feeling when I was walking around the house. Like that feeling like something's behind you, like, ooh, spooked. I had never really felt that way in this house, but recently I've been kind of getting a vibe. And over the weekend, for sure, as I was walking around, I was like, I just don't feel super comfortable here. So today I go to work, and the little boy that I nanny is sleeping. He wakes up, but he's playing happily in his bed, okay? He likes to play for a little bit. All of a sudden, he starts screaming, crying, bloody murder. He's cowering in his bed. So I go up the stairs and I open the door and I said, buddy, what's wrong? What happened? You got upset all of a sudden. And he said, there's something behind the chair. And there's a rocking chair in his room. I went over there and I looked and I was like, there's nothing behind here. He said, yes, there was a foot. There was a foot sticking out from behind the rocking chair. And I immediately got all the goosebumps because I was like, I knew it. Freaking knew something was in this house. Anyway, I told it to leave under my breath, and I let him know that he was safe. And then later, go upstairs, I put him down, I'm trying to put him down for his nap, and he starts to whimper and cower in the corner. And I was like, buddy, what's wrong? And he was like, I'm scared to go to sleep. He like goes like this, and he put his blanket over his face, and he was looking, and he was like, I'm afraid I'm gonna see the foot again. And I was like, oh no, honey, you're never gonna see that foot ever again. I told it to get out. I swear this stuff always happens to me.
This is an update on the scary story from yesterday. So I got to work this morning and my boss said that she had went back and watched the camera in the little boy's room to see if she could see anything during the morning when, if you haven't watched the video, basically something happened where he saw something in his room. Go back and watch the video if you're interested in the details. She said she went back and she watched the video and she was like, I couldn't see anything. And she thinks that he started to talk to the thing behind the chair and get scared when like maybe a car drove by the window and there was like a change in lighting, like there was a shadow or something. So she said that she noticed a correlation between the shadow moving throughout the room and him starting to be scared. So that's the update. Would love to know your thoughts. Do you think it was just a shadow, or do you think that there's something in the house?
I think it's one thing if your own kids say some freaky thing and it's like your house that they're talking about, but when you're in a stranger's house with, I mean, not a stranger, but when you're in a house that's not yours with someone else's kids, I think that would be even creepier because it's like, it's not your home. You're not as familiar and comfortable with the home as your own. It's someone else's kids. And even if you know them pretty well, maybe you don't know them enough. And I think that would really freak me out. Like I honestly think I'd have a hard time being like a nanny or a babysitter and being in someone else's house after dark and like being the only one awake by myself as I wait for the parents to come home or something like that. I think I'd be a little freaked out. You know, it's not my space and it's dark and unfamiliar noises. And then a kid tells you they see a foot from underneath a chair. I don't think I'd be cut out for that job. Our next TikTok's with the user, drenaandmikesparanormal.
The other night on live, I made a comment and I said, I feel like a lot of people don't believe the videos that we post about paranormal, the voices we catch, the shadows we catch, the noises we catch. It's real. This is an example of EVP's electronic voice phenomena that was heard by 3 different cameras around the same time. I don't know why, I don't know who it was, but it's there. This was not added in to the audio, it's original audio, but y'all listen to the video. Let me know what you think about it.
Why would they be moving by itself? The only thing in the hallway that's moving.
Something banging out there.
Yeah.
Oh, look at this. Isn't that wild? Look at that picture.
Oh shit. Well, why is this moving though? You hear that? You hear that? You hear that?
There's something.
They definitely caught something. Like, there is no question in my mind they caught something. Now, I'm not sure what it is. You know, this is a pretty short clip of obviously a whole investigation. But I love when people on different devices catch the same sound or like EVP, because again, it's like the same thing of people experiencing things and not realizing the other person's experiencing it. It's irrefutable proof in my opinion. So I definitely recommend checking out their channel if you want to watch this whole video or any of their other investigations. I found this one really interesting. Our next TikTok's by the user, julieyarotsky.
Okay, no fucking joke. I'm loading up wood and I look up and this is what I see. Wait for it. Why does it look like a goddamn Yeti? Anybody? Because it's real tall. I'm not down with it. Alright. I think it's time to go back inside now.
So if I saw that, I would probably run inside my house and lock all the doors and then board up all the windows and then never come out. Because that's not even just like, maybe I saw Bigfoot. That's like, what the hell is that thing? Looking, I paused it as she's zooming in and I'm looking at it right now, and my stomach, like, I feel like I'm on a roller coaster just looking at this picture through the screen. My eyes are starting to water. I would be so scared. I love nature and forests are beautiful and wonderful, but God, I could never live in one because that is so scary. I hate that. Our next TikTok's by the user, brinkluvsbooks.
Hi guys, my name is Brinkley. I grew up in a haunted house, but I have so many stories, so I want to tell you guys some. Okay, these are my top 5. I wrote them down. Ghost stories. I have way more. I have pictures. So many fun memories. I moved out of this house when I was 13. I do want to mention, it was an orange grove before we built it. But someone, when they were building the house, told my parents that the house was haunted. Yeah, okay. So these are top 5. One of them, I was not there for. The rest of them, I was there for. Start off. I was probably like 8 years old. It was Christmas break. I know that was Christmas break because I tried to play my elf on the shelves. I was outside reading my American Girl magazine, watching Disney Channel. Felt like I was getting watched. I look over at our pool bath door. What do I see? A little girl watching me with her hair like crazy. Okay, blonde girl. My nephew had an invisible friend named Emily, so we always just called her Emily. It was always in the spare room too. That's at the house. That is where he said she lived. Okay. Moving on. This is number 2. When I was younger, I had a really good friend that lived next door, and she would always come and hang out with me. We were in my playroom playing with my Barbies. We locked the door because we didn't want my dad to disturb us. And my dad was working in the garage. My mom was not home. A little bit into our playing, we actually heard the door start shaking and someone trying to open it and banging on the door. Dad? Dad? Mom? No one answered. It was not my parents. I look under the door. 2 little feet. Really pale feet. We hid in the closet until it stopped. Okay, moving on. The activity really picked up during quarantine when I was just, alone in the house all the time. I would get a shower, and I had a bathroom that was Jack and Jill to the spare room, which was the haunted room. I would hear singing. Yeah. Singing and laughing, and It's very nice. Next, one morning I woke up. My mom was in the shower and there was someone in the corner of her bedroom. I did sleep with my parents until I was 11 years old. Don't judge me. I was scared. Someone was in the corner. Just like tweaking. Yeah, white dress, little girl, again. I was not the only one that saw this little girl. Now, that same day, my sister heard crying in the bedroom. My brother-in-law also got woken up, and my grandma, by the same girl, okay? And then my fifth and final point for today is light bulb. When my parents were talking about how they were going to move from the house and the ghost couldn't follow them, this is the one I was not there for, a light bulb that they had just changed exploded. Yeah, right at that time. I do live in a different house. I've never had any experiences here, but I will say the people who moved into the house after us did not stay there long.
Honestly, it kind of makes sense to me that she said activity picked up during quarantine. I feel like that was such a weird time for a lot of people that it was easy to prey on people's emotions, and honestly, probably something that spirits, like, it was a different kind of emotion than I think a lot of people had. You know, I know there are a lot of people that were depressed and struggling because we were all locked up and things weren't the way they normally were, obviously, which I think about that sometimes. I'm like, how weird is it that we all lived through that? Like, that's such a weird time. I can't believe it's actually real. Because it was so absurd and out of the ordinary. People feeling a lot of different emotions that they necessarily hadn't felt before. And I think that probably was prime time for a lot of things to prey on said negative and confused and whatever emotions. And especially being home a lot, I feel like I hear a lot of people experiencing a lot of weird activity during quarantine. Our next TikTok's by the user, King of the World.
I'm going to tell you guys about a ghost story that I had happen a couple days ago. So pretty much I was like sitting, hanging out, vibing and chilling as usual with Jaja. And I swear to fucking God, I see this ghost. Lame one, by the way. I'm pretty sure like pretty lame. And so one winter's night, or like a couple of days ago, I was like doing something incredibly important. Probably. But I was like, what the fuck is that? Like I could feel, like it felt like it was getting cold, like random like gusts of wind. Like, you know how somebody walks past you like this? And then like you can feel the gust? And that's what it felt like, except for there was nobody walking past me. It was just me and Jaja. And I grew up in a haunted house, so I like know these things about ghosts. I don't know, but this one took me by surprise. It was kind of lame too, by the way, like a loser one. And so I like see like this in front of me, like I'm not even kidding. And the way I knew that it was real is because of something I'm gonna tell you later. But I like see, it looks like it's wearing like a necktie, like a black tie, and then like a tuxedo. And Jaja's looking at the same fucking thing as me. We're both like, cause this fool's like right in front of me. And we were just like, zoinks. Like, what are we supposed to do? And so pretty much what it was doing was like walking around my coffee table, it looked like. I don't know if it was trying to be menacing. I don't know if it knew that I could see it, but I could see it looking fucking stupid. But the way that I knew that it was actually there was not because of just Jaja. I have a TV stand. So my TV is on something. And it has like these like window thingies on it, like where you can put storage. There's like a little fireplace thing. Tell me why I can see this ghost shadow. So I see its stupid ass like walking around the table, doing its thing. But the reflection is also in the glass. Like, that ghost was literally there. But imagine doing that, like, if you weren't a ghost. Just, like, trying to, like, intimidate somebody, like some mere mortal, by, like, walking around their fucking coffee table in their living room. Weird. I also got 2 more tattoos. Just, like, as a side note, in case you guys wanted to know about that.
Our next TikTok's by the user, momestroni.
Okay, so I've done a video on this before touching on the subject, but it was a pretty lengthy one, and it's really, really old. But I saw something earlier that reminded me of this story, and if you don't believe it, whatever. But it's talking about mimics, and I have a mimic story. Anybody that knows me, my last house was, like, extremely haunted. I don't think it was the house, I think it was the land. Because my mom and my brother lived right behind me, and a lot of these experiences happened down at their house too. But anyway, my brother literally lived a stone's throw behind me, and I'm talking, it was like 15 feet behind me. And I get a text message from him saying, "Hey, are you home?" And I said, "No, why? What's up?" And he was like, "Are you sure you're not home?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm sure I'm not home." He's like, "Well, I'll tell you about it when you get here." So when I get back, he's like, "I heard you talking." He said, "Me and my girlfriend were in the bathtub," which is like right on the edge of their wall, and that he heard me like out in the yard saying, "Hey." And he was like, "Why?" Because I just walk in his house, you know, and he just walks in mine. So it was weird that I would like talk to him through the wall, and it's just weird. Anyway, he kept hearing me say, "Hey," and he was like, "Hey," and it went quiet, and then you'd hear me say again, "Hey," just like that. Ugh. And he said he kept trying to get a response from me, and the only thing I would say was "Hey," and it happened a couple of times, and then it just went quiet. And that's when he was like, "That's so weird." And that's when he texted me. This thing mimicked my voice perfectly. And then the second time, my mom came up, and she was like, "Oh, we'll have family dinner. I want to cook up here. We'll eat together. It'll be fun." And I was like, "Okay." So me being an independent woman, I'm out there changing the oil in my car. I'm letting it drain. As I'm letting it drain, I'm like, I'm going to go sit inside and chill for a minute while that's draining. She's cooking in my house. And she's like, "I forgot something down at the house. I'll be back in just a minute." I was like, "Okay." Plop down on the couch. A couple minutes passes by, and she comes bursting in the back door. She looks at the stove. She's like panicked. I'm like, "What?" She makes eye contact with me, and she's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, why?" I was like, "I've just been sitting here on my phone." And she was like, "I heard you scream at the top of your lungs. Like blood curdling. I thought you were being murdered. I thought the house was on fire. Scream." I said, "No, I have not made a single sound. I've just been sitting on my phone." So again, my voice, which is just so incredibly strange. And mimics are 100% real. Hauntings are real. Land can be haunted. It's true.
I will never get over how terrifying mimics are. I mean, just the concept of them mimicking someone like your parent, who obviously, typically, you are comfortable around, you have your guard down, so you hear your mom or your dad calling for you, and you don't think anything of it because it's someone you trust. But in reality, it's an entity that is trying to trick you and using that trust you have with a person to kind of worm their way in and then eventually get under your skin. I think mimics are nothing to be messed with. They scare me to death. I mean, as we always say, if you hear something, no you didn't. Our next TikTok by the user, bibblebobb.
I've been almost napped twice, and one of the times was in a cemetery, because I love cemeteries. I love walking through cemeteries. I'm actually sitting by one right now that I'm gonna go walk through. But I was walking through this one cemetery, and all of a sudden I just got this feeling that I needed to hide. So I did. I listened to those ghosts, because sometimes I label the anxiety as ghosts because I think it's more fun. And I hid behind a tree, and I looked into the distance to see what I was hiding from, and it was a car. And there was this car there with their lights off, and it was like kind of, the sun was setting, so I was like, oh, a little suspicious, but they could be visiting somebody, I don't know. And this car ended up driving away while I was hiding, and I didn't see them leave the cemetery, but I also wasn't looking at the exits, but you could see the exits from where I was standing. And I was like, oh, they probably left. I'll just keep on my merry way. And I kept on walking, and then I just got this feeling again, anxiety or the ghost, who knows, but I was like, I gotta go home. I can't keep this walk. So I started walking back to my car, turned my ass around, went to my car, okay? So I'm walking, strolling along, going back to my car, and all of a sudden I see headlights behind me. And I turn around, and what do you know? It's the car I was hiding from before that I didn't even see leave the cemetery. And I was like, oh, guess they didn't leave. And then I just got anxious again because I was just hiding from these people. So I just start running. I start running. And then their car speeds up. And that's when I start to get a little actually scared. And I have a choice to make, okay? I could either continue running straight along the road, having these guys grab me and throw me in their car and drive off with me on my way to my car. Or I could turn left and run through the grass, go to the fence line, and yell for help. And so I decided left is my best option because I'm not a runner. I was already tired of running. So I go left and I get to the fence line. And as soon as I get to the fence line, I turn around. And what do you know? Their car is stopped and 2 men and 1 woman are getting out of their car. The woman is going to the back seat, opening the trunk, and the 2 men are approaching me. How freaking lovely. Lovely little cemetery stroll, everyone. I was like, freaking great. Freaking frackety great. Let me just quickly trespass into these people's yards. And I turn back around getting ready to hop the fence, and I hear a dog barking, and this woman comes out of her house and she's like, stop barking at that young girl. And I was like, no, bark at that young girl, no, bark, help, there, look. And she looked and she was like, oh my god. And Mickey Mouse. And then she put a ladder. She had a literal ladder in case of this situation, in case somebody needed to climb over a fence. And I was like, oh, amazing. Climb that fence. And already her son was coming out with a, now we live in America. I was appreciative of that in that moment. And he like points it at the people that are approaching me. They run back to their car. The lady is like looking at us with fear in her eyes, slams her trunk closed, gets in the car too, and they speed off and drive away. And then I stayed with those nice people until the police showed up. And yeah, it was really scary. But I hope you liked the little show I put on for you while I was talking about it. Makes it less scary. Making fun of it and talking about it like this, at least. Anyway, I think it was the ghost talking to me and not the anxiety, but it could have still just been anxiety. I don't know.
Our next TikTok's about the user hauntedlagirl.
Did I see the creature that is supposed to jump on your car off of San Fernando Mission Boulevard next to the Mission and Brand Park here in Mission Hills, California? Pues. As some of you already know, I put out a call to action to see if you guys wanted to join me for a little impromptu paranormal investigación right here in Mission Hills by the Mission and Brand Park. And I definitely heard some things. We heard some things. And hell, we even saw some things. I mean, I'm still 50-50 on this picture. But after we left for the investigation, I decided to do another personal investigation on my own. And that is to test another legend to see if we could find the cryptid that's supposed to jump on the top of your car off of San Fernando Mission Road. Now, as you guys see, it's 11:30 and I make my way to San Fernando Mission Boulevard right here by the mortuary, the park, and of course, right next to the Mission. Now, according to another legend, aside from the woman in white that's seen on this road, there is a cryptid here that is often seen on the road, or sometimes you don't see him. Sometimes you can actually hear him jump on the roof of your car and start scratching on it as though it's trying to get in and grab you. Or sometimes people have seen a weird humanoid creature in the middle of this road that chases after them in their car. Now, several of you have actually sent me accounts and even accounts from, you know, other family members who've had experiences with this alleged cryptid, but as of now, hadn't experienced him. I really wanted to experience a Taco Bell at this time, or an In-N-Out burger. So let me know in the comments if you've ever heard of this legend of the cryptid that haunts San Fernando Mission Boulevard. Stay haunted, stay weird, and also stay tuned. Be sure you're following for another soon-to-be announcement for another paranormal investigation. Have pleasant dreams.
There are so many weird paranormal things, weird cryptid things going on in California, the Los Angeles area. There's just so much weird stuff going on there. I did film a whole entire video talking about California and their paranormal ghost stories as part of my Haunted USA series, and a lot of her videos were featured in that if you want to go check it out if you haven't seen it already. God, there's so much lore and so many just interesting paranormal things that are going on all over the place in California and SoCal. The idea of a cryptid that jumps on your car, it really does not seem that out of the ordinary to me. Our next TikTok's by the user cleverfawx.
So I have a spooky story for you, except this one's unique because it comes from you guys, the viewers. Now this one is a special exception because this one is going to require the help of our audience. In this story, you'll find that there are some freaky things going on in this story, and our submitter would like your help. But as usual, please keep it cute in my comments because these are somebody's real experiences. And as usual, the submitters will be kept anonymous and I've been given permission to share. So let's go ahead and get into it. Our story opens up pretty ominously. It starts off like this. I haven't breathed a word of this to anyone. I feel like I'm going crazy, but I know I'm completely sane. However, if I tell people close to me, I'm afraid they'll think something is wrong with me. And what I'm dealing with is enough without adding to the equation. So here it is. I haven't told my teenager why we've been having family sleepover movie nights almost every night this week. I haven't told my 5-year-old why we aren't playing in the backyard after 4 p.m. anymore. Living out here in the woods, you get used to the strange sounds of the Michigan winter. The trees cracking in the frost, the wind howling through the leaves, but this is different. This isn't wind. It started about a week ago. I was in the kitchen late at night, just enjoying the silence after the boys finally went down, when I heard a soft, rhythmic tapping on the glass of a sliding door. Tap, 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 tap. It was the exact cadence my dad used to use when he'd knock on my bedroom door to wake me up for a drink of tea before he left for work. It made my heart ache for a second, just a pure reflexive memory. But my dad has been gone since I was 10. Now I looked out into the yard and the motion light kicked on. There was nothing there but snow. But then I saw the footprints. They weren't coming towards the house. They were already there, circling the perimeter in deep, heavy indents as if something incredibly heavy had been pacing outside the glass for hours. I brushed it off. It's dark and maybe I'm seeing things. Plus, I honestly didn't want to go outside and check and leave the boys inside. I don't blame you. The next night, though, I was tucked into bed when I heard a voice through the baby monitor in my youngest son's room. It was a woman's voice, soft and melodic. She was humming a lullaby, the specific off-key version of Twinkle Twinkle my mom used to sing to me before she passed when I was 12. It was beautiful for a heartbeat, and then the terror set in. My boys had never heard that song. I'd never sung it to them. It was a memory I kept locked away in a box. I ran to his room, but he was fast asleep. The room was freezing, though, like someone had left a window wide open, even though the window was shut and everything was locked. My son stirred in his sleep and whispered, "The tall man says they're trying to keep the bad thing out, Mommy." Weird. Creepy, yes, but my youngest son says some weird shit sometimes, so I tucked him back into bed and I told myself that ghosts are not real and maybe his brother let him watch a scary movie. But then, I realized 2 nights later what was happening. My parents aren't the ones that I'm afraid of. Whatever's out there is using them, because that night, I finally saw it. I was checking the locks on the front door when I looked through the peephole. Standing at the end of the driveway was a figure that looked just like my father from behind. The same slouch, the same jacket. I almost opened the door. I almost screamed out for him. But then the figure turned around. It didn't have a face. It was just a smooth, pale surface, like a thumbprint of skin where features should be. It started to speak. But the voice didn't come from its mouth. It came from the trees, the air, from inside my own head. It was my mother's voice screaming my name in absolute agony, pleading for me to open the door because it was catching her. But as the voice screamed, I felt a sudden, inexplicable warmth on my shoulders. It felt like 2 sets of hands, solid and real, pressing down on me, holding me back from the door. I heard a faint, different sound, a real sound, the distinct jingle of my dad's old keychain and the scent of my mom's specific floral perfume. It was faint, but it was there, anchored in the hallway behind me. They weren't the things outside. They were the ones trying to keep me from opening the latch. The thing outside isn't my family. It's a mimic, something that sifts through your head and pulls out the people you miss the most to make you lower your guard. It's been circling the house every night since. It stands under the oak tree, and it weeps in my mother's voice. Then it bangs on the siding with my father's heavy-handed knock. Last night, it got closer. I was in the bathroom, and the mirror fogged up from the shower. A finger traced a message in the steam. I thought it was the mimic, but the handwriting was my mother's elegant, loopy script. It just said, "Do not listen, do not respond." Right now, I'm sitting on the sofa between my 2 boys. My teenager is asleep, but my 5-year-old is staring at the dark corner of the ceiling. He told me earlier that Grandpa is standing over us with a flashlight, and Grandma is blocking the vents. I can't see them, but I can feel the air in the house getting tighter, heavier, as if they are bracing themselves against the wall. Because outside, something is scratching at the chimney, and it started calling the boys by their names in a voice that sounds exactly like mine. Now, this story is scary to me, and I did ask the submitter where they lived, or rather how long they lived there. They did say they lived in Michigan, and they said that they lived in this house for a couple of years. And yes, they have had ghost experiences in the past, but not like constantly. And whatever it is has not gotten inside. But aside from that, everything's still out in the open. But I want to know what you guys are thinking in the comments. To be honest, I'm not sure what it is. I'm not even sure if this is truly a mimic. I've read a lot of stories with mimics. They all have similarities, but this to me seems like something different. I'm not sure if it's demonic. I'm not sure if it's a ghost. I'm not sure if it's a mimic. I do think there might be something on the land because the submitter is talking about how she can hear whatever this thing is in the environment and that whatever it is outside is trying to get in. But it could very well be that the land is also cursed or haunted on its own. I have read stories where a piece of land can be dormant for ages, and then there can be something that comes and wakes something up. I just don't know what that something would be in this story. So I really want to know what you guys are thinking. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let me know what you guys are thinking about the story. If you can help our submitter out, I would greatly appreciate it. Again, just be polite, and I'll see you guys in my next video.
Now, this is obviously a viewer submitted story to this user because she shares others' ghost stories, something that I would love to do at some point. I do have an email that's linked down below if you guys want to submit your ghost stories. It's like AbbeyStorySubmission or something at gmail.com. You'll see it down below. So if you want to submit any stories there, feel free. Once I have enough, then I will make a full video sharing them. But this goes back to the mimic thing of if you heard something, no you didn't. And it's so scary that there are multiple of this person's family members being mimicked to try and get access to the home and the children. And to me, something is not right here. Like, really not right. Just, it's more than just spooky. It seems definitely threatening and dangerous, and I really hope that they're safe. But God, I can't even imagine like having to not only worry about yourself in this situation, but worry about your kids too. That would be such a difficult and terrifying thing to deal with. Our next TikTok's by the user, SustainAspell444.
If you're seeing me for the first time, it might be because the algorithm thinks you would be interested in hearing a good ghost story, because that is primarily what I do here on this channel. But I'm also a TikTok shop affiliate. I'm an urban homesteader. And if you are interested in ghosts, please go to my profile and you will see a subheading called My Haunted House, and you can click on that and get caught up on all of the crazy things that have been happening here. I've been sharing stories since about June, so there are quite a few stories in there for those of you that are interested. So I'm here to give you kind of an update. Things have been really quiet the last 4 or 5 days here. And I got to tell you, I'm not disappointed about that. I've been enjoying the peace, but we've had a major change in our household. We've moved my 80-year-old dad in, and he is now living with us permanently. We put him in the upstairs bedroom, which just so happens to be the most haunted room in the house. So maybe the ghosts are quiet because they're preoccupied with him. I don't know. But it's kind of put a little bit of a snag in collecting evidence because it's hard now to differentiate between ghost noise and dad noise. So we're still fine-tuning that, and we're still trying to find a happy medium on how we can continue with our investigation here while we have the third person living with us. So today, though, I want to tell you a story, but it's not something that happened in this house. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I'm really curious to know, for the people out there who have also experienced ghosts, at what age did you see your first ghost? Because what I hear a lot from people who have had similar experiences to mine is that they saw their first ghost when they were a child. And that's certainly true for me. So this is a story about the first ghost I ever saw. I was 4 years old. It was 1974. And I had just gotten my big girl room. I am a middle child. I'm sandwiched between two brothers. And I was super excited to have my own space. My mom painted my room pink, and she decorated it with holly hobby, which was my favorite thing back then. And she was very good at sewing, and she hadn't made my curtains yet. She was looking for the perfect holly hobby fabric to make my curtains. So I didn't have curtains on my window. And but I had a beautiful white iron bed that my parents picked up at an estate sale, I think in Nebraska or something. And the room was absolutely beautiful. I had a dressing table with a little glass and brass tray sitting on top that I kept all of my little miniature lipsticks and fingernail polishes. They were Avon samples that my grandmother had given me, and I was really proud of that. So my parents tucked me into bed like they did every single night, turned off my light, closed my door, and they were gone, and I quickly fell asleep. And I woke up several hours later. I don't know what time it was. I was just a child. I didn't have a clock in my room. And I woke up because the room was illuminated. And I sat up in bed, and the closet was right in front of my bed. It faced my bed. And the closet door was open, and there was a woman standing in the doorway. And she was wearing 1950s clothing. She had on a navy blue dress. It was a navy blue fitted top and a flared white skirt with navy blue polka dots. She was wearing pearls, and she was wearing navy blue pumps.
And I immediately started to cry. I started to panic because she scared me. I didn't know who she was. And she said, "Oh, no, no, honey, don't be afraid of me." And as soon as she got those words out, I was instantly soothed. I just had this overwhelming feeling of warmth and safety. And then I don't remember anything else until I woke up the next morning and I ran to my mom and I told her that I saw a woman standing in my bedroom. And of course she said what all parents do, which is, "Oh, you were just dreaming." But I know that I wasn't dreaming. So a few weeks later, I see her again. I wake up because my room was illuminated, and this time she's standing over by my dressing table. Her back isn't to me. She's kind of turned, and she's looking down, and she's got her arms folded over the front of her like this, and she's smiling, and she's looking down at my little tray with my mini lipsticks and fingernail polishes, and she's kind of chuckling, and she's shaking her head like, "Oh, that's so precious." And again, I am filled with just this feeling of well-being and love, and I'm just soothed. And I don't remember falling asleep. I just remember the next morning waking up and running to my parents and telling them continually that I am seeing this woman in my room. And my parents are exchanging looks like, maybe something's wrong with our daughter. So this brings me to another experience that I had in that room, and this one started happening shortly after, and it was not a nice presence. So I used to like to redecorate my room all the time, and so I had my parents switch my bed with the dressing table. So my bed is now on the other wall, and in front of the bed is my window that looks out into a fenced backyard. My parents put me to bed, and they turn around, exit the room, turn the light off, and I lay down, but I quickly sit back up because I saw something move, and my eyes focus on my window, and I see, and this is the part that makes it sound like I was dreaming because it sounds absurd, but I swear to God this happened. There were 3 faces in my window. There was a black man, there was a Chinese man, and there was a white man. And I know that sounds like an intro to a really terrible joke, but that's what I saw. And they were laughing, but it wasn't a jovial, happy laugh. It was menacing. It was terrifying. And I screamed, and my parents ran back into my room. They hadn't even got to the end of the hallway yet. And they turned on the light, and I was crying, and I said that there were 3 men staring at me from my window. And of course, my dad ran into the backyard to catch these peeping Toms that were peeping at his 4-year-old daughter, and he found nothing. So for the next couple of hours, I went back and forth trying to sleep with my parents because I did not want to stay in that room. And in my house, it was not allowed to sleep with mom and dad. And so they did not allow it. That was a rule. And I ended up curling up in front of the heater in the hallway and sleeping on the floor. So for the next couple of days, it was a battle to get me to sleep in my room. I was absolutely terrified once night fell to be in that room. So as a compromise, my parents put up a quilt in my window to act as a temporary curtain. And that appeased me. So they put me to bed like they always did, and I started to fall asleep. And just a few minutes later, I hear thwomp. And I sit up in bed, and the quilt had fallen from the window onto the floor, and there were those 3 faces, menacing faces, laughing at me. And again, I cried, I screamed, I fought with my parents, and I ended up sleeping in the hallway on the floor again. So my parents, again, were looking at each other like maybe there's something wrong with her. So they ended up taking me to a bunch of doctors. One of them was a neurologist. I had like all these little electrodes stuck all over my head, and all of the tests came back normal. There was nothing wrong with me. But my mom and dad did get me curtains. And to this day, 50 years later, I cannot sleep in a bedroom that does not have curtains. I cannot sleep in a bedroom when the curtains are open. It traumatized me that much. 50 years later, I'm still thinking about it. So has anyone ever heard of these 3 faces before? And if you have, please drop that in the comments. If you haven't done so already, please give me a like and a follow. And let's talk about ghosts, guys.
I absolutely love her videos. I've included some of them in a couple other of my videos, and I definitely want to source more for future videos because she is a great storyteller and she just seems like the sweetest lady. But this one, I mean, normally her stories is like they're spooky ghost stories, but they don't feel threatening. But the idea of 3 men watching you from outside your window is a nightmare. I mean, whether or not they're ghosts or real, absolute nightmare. That's why, you know, they say not to look out your windows after dark. If you're in Appalachia, if you see something, no you didn't. I do not blame her for, you know, having to cover up her windows ever since then. That would traumatize me for a very long time. Our next TikTok spit user, moshmob. Now this is the opposite of if you hear something, no you didn't. If you hear nothing, run inside. Get out of there. I mean, when everything goes dead silent in the forest, something is out there. Our next TikTok spit user, YummyUmeg214.
I saw a tweet on Twitter that said, would you live in a haunted house for free? And I see a lot of y'all saying yes. So I think I'm gonna tell you about my story time about how I actually lived in a haunted house rent free. So my aunt passed away, and basically my mom told me I can go live in her house because the same city that she had her house in, I worked in. At this point I was like 20 years old and I was living with my mama and we was all crowded up. So I was like, you know what, fuck it, yeah, I'll go live in my aunt's house, like, because she didn't pass away in that house. And it was a 4-bedroom 2-story. I'm like, period. 20 years old, 2-story house. All I had to pay was utilities. So I'm like, okay, cool, bet. So mind y'all, me and my cousin, which is my aunt's daughter, is really close. And I remember she used to tell me about, you know, how she would have sleep paralysis in the house and things would happen. But I took it with a grain of salt because I'm just like, this is a rent-free house. You know what I'm saying? No rent. So the first night that I got there, when I first walked in the house, right hand of God, I got chills. But I was just like, you know, maybe I'm just paranoid because I'm moving from my mom's house to a big, you know, 2-story house. When I went upstairs, I felt like something was watching me go into room to room because it was 4 bedrooms. So I was just kind of looking around the house because I haven't been in the house since I was, you know, younger. The first night I went to sleep, I woke up at 3:33. Every single night that I lived in that house, I woke up at 3:33 to the point that I didn't even check my phone anymore because I knew what time it was. That was the first sign that something was disturbing my spirit, but I just took it as me being paranoid. So because I was by myself, like, and I was kind of scared, I was like, okay, let me get a pet. I ended up getting a cat. I had that cat, y'all, I swear to God, every single day that that cat was there, it would literally scratch and meow to get out of the house to go to the backyard. Like, it never liked staying inside of the house at all, and got to the point where I just never seen the cat again. That should have been my second sign. I started having sleep paralysis. Never had this before ever in my life. And when I first started having sleep paralysis, I didn't see anything. It's just I had a state of fear over my body, if that makes sense. I could move my eyes, but I couldn't move my body. At this point, I was becoming restless. I was just living in a constant state of fear, but I was still praying. I had a boyfriend at the time who was really into church, so I was telling him about what was going on, and at first I was trying to keep it to myself because I thought that I was being crazy, but it was to the point where I was really starting to really fear my life, if that makes sense. And I don't even know why I had so much fear because I hadn't actually seen anything at this point, but just the feeling that I had in that house, it was a constant state of fear. He was like, okay, I'm gonna come over, I'm gonna start sleeping with you, you can start sleeping in my house. I was like, just come over or whatever. He comes over and he prays over the house. I start washing the dishes and we go back upstairs. Now let me explain to y'all. In the kitchen, it's like this. This is the like the kitchen is right here, and it's the island with the sink, and like the island kind of goes out, and then it is the living room. So the living room is tile. So if you was to drop anything on the floor, it would be loud because it's like that hard towel. So I wash the dishes. I put them in that little dryer, like, y'all know them things you sit on the counter, you put, like, you know what I'm talking about, I don't know how to explain it. But I set the dishes inside of there. Mind you, where the drying dish thing was, it was not nowhere near any edge. It was in the middle of the counter. We go upstairs. This is after he prayed. We go upstairs, we getting cozy in the bed. I kid you not, 5 minutes later, we hear a loud ass noise, like a very loud noise, to the point where we was like, what the fuck? We run downstairs, we go look. It's a big ass salad bowl and 2 cups in the middle of the living room. So not even near if something just fell in the living room. No, it was in the middle, like something had thrown it. At that point, he said, you need to get out this house, or you need to get this house actually prayed over, because something is upset here. So at this point, I'm like so scared that I'm like sleeping at his house. But this particular day, he had to go out of town with his friends for something. So I was like, I'm gonna just spend the night at the house. I'm gonna just pray. I'm gonna drink some NyQuil so I can sleep through the night. I drink the NyQuil. That does not work. I wake up at 3:33. And this time I'm in sleep paralysis. And before I went to sleep, I had a movie playing on the TV. Now, this is a thing. I was playing it on a DVD player because I didn't have cable. I was broke. I was playing it on a DVD player. When I woke up, the movie was on, and then static came on the TV. Right hand of God. When that happened, I literally felt like I was having an anxiety attack because I was breathing really hard, but I could not move. At this point, for the first time ever, and last time, I saw an actual figure by the door. However, I could not fully make it out because I wear glasses. Well, right now I have contacts. I didn't wear contacts at the time, but I had glasses, so I couldn't make it out, but it was just a black figure. At that point, I closed my eyes and I prayed and I said, God, if this is my time, just let me be with you. Just take me with you. When I kept repeating it in my head, because I can't talk or move, I'm saying it in my head, I go into a deep sleep. When I wake up that next morning, and that was the weird thing. I had never slept that deep before. I don't know if that was God. I'm not sure. But when I woke up that next morning, I started second guessing myself. Like, did that even really happen? Is this really in my head? Whatever. I get ready for work. When I pull my shirt up to get in the shower, I have a bruise this big on my stomach, like to the right, kind of like almost at my side. At that point, I said, this is enough. I told my mom, I told my cousins, I told my friends, I told everybody, and I was like, I'm getting out of here. I ended up moving into an apartment with my best friend, and I left all my stuff there. When I was talking to my mom about it, she was telling me about how when my aunt was alive, she came over there to do her hair. She set her phone in the middle of my aunt's bed, and my aunt had a really big bed. They went downstairs to do my aunt's hair, and they heard something loud. So they like hit the ground. They went upstairs, and my mom's phone was in the middle of the room. So at this point, I was living with my best friend, and then this is when I think like a year later or maybe 2 years later, we had the really bad snowstorm in Dallas. A pipe bursted in my aunt's house, so everyone kind of just went over there to clean out the house. I wouldn't even go to that house after dark. Like after I moved, I wouldn't go there after dark. But for whatever reason, I went over there with my mom for something. I can't remember what it was. And we ended up finding a manila envelope. When I opened up the envelope with my mom, we pulled it out. It was about 15 obituaries in there. And I had a thought like, I wonder is something in this house tied to those obituaries? Because I know this is not my aunt in this house, especially if this is something that my cousin was dealing with while my aunt was still alive. I'm not sure. And of course, like my aunt has passed away at this point, so we can't ask her. Rest in peace to my beautiful angel. But yeah, honestly, I didn't care. I don't care what it was, who it was mad at, whatever. I was just so thankful that I was out of that house because I didn't know how far it was going to go, especially me being there by myself. And when I got that bruise, I said, that is enough. Ever since then, I have not been back. Like since we found the obituaries and things of that nature. I don't know if anybody lives there now or if they still going through it. But yeah, y'all saying that y'all would live there. If you was terrorized by a damn ghost, you wouldn't care how free the rent was. I promise you, you will be gone.
You can't just say yes or no to that question of would you live in a haunted house rent-free, because there's different levels of haunted house. Some people have little friendly house ghosts who, maybe move stuff around here and there, but mind their own business. And some people have, conjuring house level demonic possessions. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of an answer. I think I'd live in a nice friendly house rent-free, but I have a feeling that's not the kind of ghost that would cause the haunted house to be rent-free. If it's a haunted house and it's rent-free, it's probably because there's something pretty nasty in there and they're just trying to get someone to live there. Our next TikTok's by the user lilmacberger. So this is obviously very concerning. I don't know, my first thought wouldn't necessarily be paranormal here. I think that there's either someone living in my attic or someone broke in. I'd honestly, genuinely probably call the police, and I'd sound insane, but also, is that really insane? You wake up and find a ham baking in your oven? I feel like it'd be more insane to act like it's not a big deal, right? I mean, my first conclusion would be that it's something human, 100%. Me, the ghost girl, I would for sure say that it's human. But if it's not human, then are you kidding me? How did the ham show up? It has to be human. I mean, this has to probably be satire. But if it wasn't human, how did the ghost just get a ham? Did she already have a ham in the house? If she came down earlier, would she have just seen a floating ham floating its way into the oven? I have so many questions. But also then I'd be concerned if the ghost is turning on the oven, is it going to turn on the oven when no one's home and start a fire? So many questions, no answers. I don't know, I'd be calling the police. Our next two TikToks are by the user nursemegrn.
Welcome back to Spooky TikTok. I am Nurse Meg. I've been a nurse for 16 years and the paranormal just seems to follow me everywhere. So here is one of my creepy stories. This one time I had a patient in PCU. I was working night shift and she had a cardiac cath scheduled for the next morning. Pretty simple. She would not sign the consent forms all day the day before. I tried to ask her again a couple times, hey, you haven't signed the consent forms and they're gonna come and get you pretty early, like 7:30. She was like, I can't go. If I go, I'm gonna die. Do you want to watch the procedure on YouTube with me? Like, it's a pretty simple thing. She still insisted, no, if I go get the procedure, I'm gonna die. And I said, okay, I'm sorry you feel that way. The doctor will be here in the morning and he can talk to you. You know, it's up to you. And I should point out, she was completely alert and oriented, times 3. So the doctor comes in and is like, hey, you know how doctors are. They're like, I've got 70 million patients. Like, let's go. You want this done? Let's go. Like, what's happening? What's going on? So, you know, kind of pressuring her, like, it's a simple procedure. I'm just going to go in, peek, pull it. We're going through radial. We're not going through femoral. Like, it's going to be so simple. You're going to be out of here tomorrow. Maybe end of the day. She finally signs the consents and she's so worried. She's signing it. And as she's signing it, she's like, I am signing my death certificate. I can't believe I'm doing it. Cath lab comes, takes her away on the stretcher, and I'm taking care of another patient. I come out to chart by her room. All of a sudden, overhead, I hear code blue, cath lab, room, whatever, and I get instant chills, like, was that her? Oh my God. Oh my God. And then maybe like 5 seconds later, where I'm sitting in there just like frozen, I'm like, I can't chart. What if that was her? I see her bed, because I took her on the cath lab stretcher. I see her bed, which the wheels were locked, move towards the door. The whole bed moves towards the door, and the EKG leads that I had put on the monitor are swinging back and forth, like kind of violently. I'm like, oh my God. I get up from the thing and I'm like, Kendra, somebody talk to me. I don't want to be here. It was like, as her spirit was going up, she was like, I told you. I will never forget that. And I will always listen to a patient's intuition. Welcome to Spooky Season TikTok. If you like the paranormal stories or creepy stories, I've been a nurse for 16 years and I have so many night shift, unexplained paranormal stories for you. So here is one that I'd love to share with you. One time we had a patient who was pretty young, who was a trauma and actually passed. We coded, tried our best, and he passed. Me and another CNA are doing the post-mortem stuff, tagging, cleaning, removing lines, things like that. And we're talking to this patient like, hey, you know, it's time to go. It was, I hope you had a good time on this side, and I hope you're able to make it to the other side and you see familiar faces over there. I really like to talk to the patient or the spirits who are there because I feel like they're still there sometimes. As we're cleaning him up and doing post-mortem care, we're talking to him and saying, like, we're just going to make you nice and clean. We're going to make you nice and comfortable as you're transitioning if you haven't already. And as we are turning him back and he like lays, the body lays back, he goes, ah, like a sigh. Me and Lawrence, the other tech that was there, we were both like, ah. Now, this can happen. It's like an involuntary reflex. Gases, things are moving. But, I mean, to be in the room with a dead body and all of a sudden it, like, sighs, freaks me out.
I think the first one is so sad that obviously that woman knew that it was her time and she was so scared. I mean, I think a lot of times it's like people just have this gut feeling that it's like, this is going to happen. And when you feel that gut feeling, trust it 100%. The second one, I don't think it was paranormal, like she said. Obviously, like, when people are in the early stages of having just died, you know, muscles are relaxing and stuff like that, and it is 100% possible that someone just, like, exhales because their chest relaxes, or, you know, the last bit of air that was in them is pushed out. So I don't think that was paranormal, but I feel like it would be pretty darn creepy to experience. You know someone's dead and you're helping take care of them as you take them down to the morgue, and then they move, they breathe, even though it's not actually them, it's just the body's natural reaction as it's, you know, relaxing and doing the things that it does once you've passed on. It would be pretty freaky to witness. Our final 5 TikToks of the video are by the user woodswalkercoffee.
Hey guys, what's up? Right now, I'm in the exact area to where the incident took place, where I saw that thing come walking out of the forest. Just to let you know, this is Uwharrie, North Carolina, and I am basically right down below the shooting range. All right. Now, when I was down here, it was between probably 12:45 and 1 o'clock in the morning. It was a full moon. You could see this road clear as a bell. You did not need a flashlight to walk it. And I was parked basically right back over here. As I was sitting in my vehicle, I had the windows down. I started hearing something coming from the wood line right up here. And I'm gonna walk right over here and I'm gonna show you exactly where it came out. Again, like I said, full moon, I could have walked this entire road if I wanted to and never needed a flashlight. All right. You see that rock right there? Okay. Now again, I'm parked over there. I'm sitting in my vehicle when all of a sudden I can hear something coming through the forest. You know, you can hear that. That's what I kept hearing. And then it would stop, and I'd hear it again. Well, the first thought was, okay, it's a big deer, because that's what it sounded like. When all of a sudden, like I said, you can believe me or not, I don't care. All of a sudden, it comes, well, I'll show you. It comes up over this embankment right here, comes down into the road, and gets right about over here. Then it turns and it goes right back, same direction, back over that hill and gone. And I can hear it just going. But again, what I saw came out sideways like a giant crab. And again, like I said, I know that's hard to take in. So it's hard to wrap your mind around it, but I'm being dead serious here. It looked like either a giant crab or like a giant spider, because basically it was walking sideways, end over end, like that. And when it got right about here, like I said, it done a quick turn, just right back around and right back into the forest, just like it came out, sideways. And I could see leg over leg over leg as it walked and went right back in, just like a freaking crab or a giant spider. Okay. Now, the reason that I know the height of it is because I've come back down here and looked at this area. When it came back out, where that rock is, and this sign right here, it was good ways up, which is almost to my waist. Okay. And like I said, you know, I'm right around 6 foot, so that's the height thing. And this thing was black as my shirt, okay? And like I said, the moon was full. I saw it clear as a bell. It didn't last but maybe time it came out, time it turned back around, went in, I'd say maybe 5-6 seconds at the most, okay? But again, I don't know what this was. It was not a Bigfoot. I'm gonna tell you right now, that is not what this was. This thing, again, was walking sideways, crawling sideways very, very fast. I'm talking right back in. I don't think personally that it ever noticed me. If it did, I couldn't tell. All I could see was a big black body. It wasn't shaped like a human body. It was just like this big black mass and just leg over leg. I mean, I don't know how many legs were there, but from what I saw, it looked to have at least 6 to 8 legs. And that's the God's honest truth. And like I said, you can believe me or not, I really don't care. I really don't. But, and this is where it happened, guys. Right here. So, and I've come back down here. I've scoped the area out, and I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. I have no clue what that was. But it wasn't a Bigfoot. Could it have been an alien? I don't know what it was. I don't know. All I know is it was here, then it was gone, and I've never seen anything like it. So, but anyway, that's what happened, and if I find anything else, I'll definitely let you know, but there it is, guys. Have a good one. What's up, guys? I had some weird things happen last night out here at the old abandoned mine. I saw what looked to be like orbs or balls of light coming out of that quarry right over there. I wish I could show you the quarry, but I can't. Some of the balls of light looked to be about the size of a 50-cent piece, and there was 2 or 3 that looked about the size of a baseball. They were kind of like a bluish white, and the bigger ones was leaving like an intro as it was coming up. Now I know for a fact these were not fireflies. These were balls of light. And what I find interesting about it was right over there in that quarry is where the elevator went down and killed 12 men when it fell 700 feet. Also, there's been several other deaths over there, right there in that section. Again, I wish I could show it to you, but I can't. So altogether, there's probably been between, I think, 20 and 21 deaths right over there. And it's weird to know that where those bodies are underground is where I was seeing those balls of light. Just thought I'd share that with you. Y'all have a good one. Several years ago, me and my son, we were coming back from Uwharrie, North Carolina. And we had started back around 3 in the morning. We was going up this incline on the road when it come up on a hill. As I hit the hill and started back down, standing right in the center of the road, damn near in front of my truck, was a teenage boy, shirtless, standing next to a bike. My son yelled out, he said, "Oh my God, watch out." I went around the boy, almost hit the ditch, and I spun around in the middle of the road. Now here's the crazy part. When my truck spun around, the headlights were aiming straight exactly where that boy was standing next to that bicycle. And that boy was nowhere to be seen. I'll never forget it. My son looked at me and he said, "Where'd he go?" I said, "I don't know, bud. I really don't." Because no sooner than we saw him and I went to the side and spun around, that only took a few seconds. Now, on both sides of the road was a big ditch and then cliffs on both sides. So there's no way that that boy jumped in the ditch with his bicycle and just disappeared. And he sure as hell didn't go up the side of that big hill dragging that bike within a matter of seconds. We rode back down the road each way for a mile looking for that boy. He was nowhere to be seen. And I will never forget my son, to this day, we still talk about it. Him saying, "Did you see what that boy looked like?" I said, "Yep. That boy was pale white, like a ghost. He had on no shirt, he had on jeans, and like I said, he was standing next to a bike in the middle of the road. But he looked almost like a skeleton standing there. And what I mean is that he was so skinny, you could literally see his face was sunk in, and literally he just looked like a skeleton." Well, a few weeks later, I was down at El Dorado Outpost, and I was talking to the owner down there about it. And he said, "Where'd that happen?" And I told him, and he said, "Well, you know," he said, "several years ago, a teenage boy got killed right there in the road while riding his bike." Yeah. So, was it a ghost? I don't know. But I know for a fact he was there, and within just a matter of seconds, he was gone and nowhere to be seen. Y'all have a good morning, everybody. It has been a long, cold night here on the graveyard shift, and it ain't over yet. I had something happen last night that I thought was interesting, so I figured I'd share it real quick. At 4:45 last night, I was parked in the company truck facing the wood line right here. The moon was visible, it was almost full, and it was right above them trees. When all of a sudden, right across from the moon, there was a quick silver flash. Just as soon as that happened, my radio station went to static. I was like, all right. So I tried another one. It was static. I tried 4 more stations, and every single station had gone to static just as soon as that silver flash happened. About, I don't know, maybe 35 seconds went by, and they all came back in. Now, I don't know why they all went to static when that silver flash hit, but whatever it was, caused every one of them to go out. I don't know. I just found that interesting. Figured I'd share it with you. But, whew, other than that, I had some kittens out here last night. Yep. A few little black ones and a black and white one right over there. And anybody that knows me personally knows that I'm a cat man. I love cats, so I had to rub them. They ran back off into the forest over there. But anyway, like I said, just wanted to share that with you. And again, that happened this last night at 4:45 a.m. I don't know, guys. Y'all have a good one. Last night, during the graveyard shift, around 2:30, when I was in here walking around, it was pitch black in here. When I got right about here, I could hear what sounded like someone right above my head, right up them stairs, walking around. It sounded like they were wearing work boots. This old factory is definitely haunted. You guys have a good one.
I think it's really interesting. He says that he saw those orbs of light right around the area where those men passed at the quarry. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think he definitely saw maybe some kind of activity from their spirits in that area. I think it would really be a fascinating thing to see, and I'd probably be like mesmerized watching it. I just love listening to his stories. I feel like his voice is just so calming, and he would make such like a good narrator on a TV show or something. But that is all I have for today's video, guys. Let me know your thoughts on any of the TikToks I shared with you today. Feel free to tag me in any you come across that you would like me to include in a future video. My TikTok username is @the_Abby_Strohmeyer. I have all of the usernames of the creators that I included in this video down below if you want to check those out. Please check out my Instagram and TikTok too while you're at it. I post spooky special effects and makeup over on those platforms. If you guys like this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. I will pop a couple of video suggestions on the screen for you to watch next. Click the subscribe button down below and turn on post notifications so you would never miss a video. I post Sundays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4 p.m. Central Time. And I'm gonna go put on some pajamas, make myself a martini, and edit this for you guys to round off my Valentine's Day. So, as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Bye.